How long does it take to learn to read Arabic? In just a little over 3 hours, you will learn all the letters and rules, start reading words and sentences, plus pick up phrases that you can use in everyday life like greetings, saying please, and counting numbers. بالتوفيق. Let's start the reading course with the first concept, which is vowels in Arabic. We will also look at some both letters in this lesson, and you will end up this lesson reading over 10 words or 15 words. Let's start with these two notes in Arabic. The first note, in Arabic, we start writing from the right to the left and not from the left to the right like in English. The second note is that we are going to use this horizontal line to help us with the positioning of the letters better. Now, let's look at the first letter. This is da, da. And I want you to see two things in this letter. I want you to see this part in orange, which is the letter itself, the da. And then I want you to see this part in purple, which is the vowel. This dash on top is the vowel in Arabic, and I will show you now how this works. So this is da. Now, let's look at this one. This one is D, D. Notice that we have the same part in orange. So we have the same letter, but the vowel is different. So this time the dash is underneath instead of being on top, and that only changes the vowel. So now instead of being da, this one is D. Da, D. The third and the last one is do, do. Notice we have again the same letter, the same part that is in orange. We only have a different part in purple. So now this looks like, I don't know, number 9, but very small. And this is the vowel that makes this letter do. So we have da, D, and do. Same letter, different vowels. The first vowel, which is like the dash on top, is what we call fatha in Arabic. Fatha. And memorizing the names of these vowels will be like really useful because we will be using them throughout the course. Fatha. طيب. The second vowel, this one, the dash underneath, is called kasra. Kasra. So you have fatha and kasra. Finally, the small 9 on top of the letter is called dhamma. Dhamma. So you have fatha, kasra, and dhamma. And fatha, kasra, and dhamma are all called haraka qasira. Haraka qasira. Short vowels. Short vowels is the translation of haraka qasira. So how many haraka qasira do you have in Arabic? We have 3. We have fatha, kasra, and dhamma. This is how they look like and this is how they sound like. Da, di, and do. Let's move on. Let's look at this one. So I hope we can now recognize this shape at the beginning. This is the da, right, with the fatha, da. Now with this long stick, this becomes twice as long. Da, rather than just da, now it's da. This long stick is called alif in Arabic, alif. Let's look at the second one. So the first part, again, we have seen in the previous slide, and this is D. Now, with this shape in orange, this becomes twice as long. So instead of D, now it's D, D. And this D, or sorry, this shape in orange is what we call ya in Arabic, ya. The third one, we have seen again the do here with the dhamma, do. Now, with this shape in orange, this shape that looks like number 9, this becomes twice as long again. So instead of do, now it's do, do. And this shape in orange is what we call wow in Arabic. So we have the alif, da, diya, di, and the wow, do. And these 3 are called haraka tawila. Haraka tawila, which means long vowels. So previously we have seen haraka qasira, short vowels, the fatha and the kasra and the dhamma. Now we're saying haraka tawila, long vowels, the alif, the ya, and the waw. Now with more examples and with reading some words, this will become clearer. So don't worry if you still are not very sure what we're talking about. Let's look at the both letters in Arabic. And we call them both letters obviously because they look like a boat. And notice that they all look the same, but I will show you how they are different in a second. First, let's assume they all have fatha. So let's add the vowels and get this out of the way. Now, these are 3 letters actually. And in Arabic, to differentiate between letters that have the same shape, we use dots. And let me show you how. So for the first letter, we will use one dot below the letter. And this letter is ba. So the boat with one dot below is ba. Remember this, below, ba, below. The second one, we will put two dots on top of it. Two dots on top, and this would be ta. Again, remember, ta, two on top, ta. The third boat, we will put three dots on top of it, and this will be tha. And again, remember, tha as in the beginning of the number 3, tha, 3. So we have ba and ta and tha. These are three different letters. They have the same base shape, but they have different positioning and numbers of the dots. Type, what do you think this one is? With the kasra this time, B, remember, dot below. And this one, T, 2T. And this one, Thi, remember, the letter was tha, as in 3, and then with the kasra it becomes Thi. What about this one? This one is Bu. And this one, Tu. And this one, Thu. Perfect. Now, let's focus on the ba for a second. Letters, or not letters, words in Arabic are written with connected letters. So the letters are not separate as we see them in English. And that's why we are going to look at how the ba would look like inside the word. And you will see what I mean in a second. So let me show you this shape. This shape is for the ba. What we have basically done is like just cut off the tail here to make it easier to connect the ba to whatever letters we have. So for example, this is a full word. And as you can see here, the ba is connected this way, right? Now, if we want to connect the ba to both sides, if the ba is in the middle of the word, as we will see with the examples now, we will just have the same half boat, only with an additional arm to the other side to help us connect it, as you see in this word. So again, this is a full word, and here we see the ba in the middle. If the ba is not connected to anything, and we will see why in some cases it will not be connected, as in this word, it will just be the boat that we have seen before with one dot below. And if the ba is at the very end and it's only connected to the right, then it would look like the full boat only with an additional arm to the right, as we see in this word. So again, this is still the ba. All of these are the same letter. So ba either looks like a full boat if it's at the very end of the word, or it looks like the same boat but cutting off the tail if it's at the beginning of the word. And then if we also need to connect it to the right, we just use the exact same two shapes with an arm to the right. And all of these are ba. So what do they have in common? They have this dot below in common, and they have like this side of the boat. They all have it. What about the ta? It looks exactly the same, only with two dots on top rather than one dot below, right? What about the tha? Again, exactly the same, only with three dots on top rather than one dot below or two dots on top. So this is what we're playing with. Now let's read some words and this will become clearer. Now, I want you to always try to read the word before I do. Do your best, just like sometimes you have to guess and then see how I read it, just that you get more practice. Let's start with the first word. So here, the first letter is do, right? Because of the dhamma, this is do. The second letter is the ba, because it has one dot below. Now, the ba here doesn't have any haraka qasira, doesn't have any vowel, right? There's no dash on top, no dash underneath, and no this dhamma symbol. So it's just dub. Whenever we don't have vowels, it's just dub. And dub is a bear. Let's look at another word. We have the ba here, because we have one dot below, that's the ba. And then we have this long stick, the alif, remember? So the alif makes the ba twice as long. So it's ba. And then what do we have? We have another ba, but this time with no vowels at all. So it's bab. And bab is a door. Bab. Let's look at this one. Again, the first part is the same. It's the ba with the alif that's making the ba twice as long. Ba. The second part, here we have the b with the kasra, b. And then we have this shape. Remember this shape? And by the way, in this course, I will always have the long vowels in orange to make it easier for you to follow the color code. So this is حركة طويلة. This is a long vowel. It's making the B twice as long. So now it's B. So the entire word is ba-bi, babi, which means my door. Let's look at this one. So what do we have here? We have two dots on top, so that's the ta. With this dhamma, it becomes two. Now, we have this letter in orange, the wow. It's حركة طويلة, so it's making the two twice as long. Two. And then what do we have? We have another ta, but this time with no vowels at all. So it's just toot. Toot. And toot means berries. Okay, let's read this one now. So what do we have here? We have the letter with one dot below. So that's the ba. And it has the fatha, so it's ba. And then what do we have? We have the boat with three dots. So this is the tha. But again, it doesn't have any vowels here. So it's just th. So the word is bath. Bath. And bath means a live stream. Next word. We have the letter with two dots on top now. So it's ta. And then we have the alif. The alif makes the ta twice as long. So it's ta. And then what do we have? We have the letter with one dot below. So that's the ba. With the dhamma, it becomes bu. And then we have this letter in orange, the wow. It makes the bu twice as long. So it's bu. So ta, bu. And then what do we have? We have the ta again, but this time with no vowels. And notice, if a letter is the last letter in a word, it will never have vowels. In Arabic, we always get rid of the vowel at the end of a word. So it's boot, ta, boot, taboot, which is a coffin. Next one. Here we have the letter with three dots on top, so that's the tha. And then we have the letter with one dot below, so that's ba. With the fathat becomes ba. And then we have the alif, this long stick in orange. It makes the ba twice as long, so it's ba, ba. And then what do we have at the end? We have the ta with no vowels, so it's just t. So let's read the entire word. We have tha, bat, thabat, which means stability. طيب, let's look at three more letters. This letter, this is a little bit more curvy compared to the both letters we have seen, and it has one dot on top. This is na, na. What about this one? We have seen this one before, right? We have seen it as a long vowel, but actually this letter also works as a regular ya sound, ya. So this is ya. Type. You might ask, well, how do I know if this is a long vowel or just a regular letter? For now, just follow the color coding I'm using. If it's in orange, it's a long vowel. If it's in black, then it's just a regular letter. It's ya. What about this one? Again, we have seen this one as a long vowel before, right? The wow. But again, it also works as a regular letter, just to say wa, wa. So what do we have here? We have na and ya and wa. طيب, what about these? This is ni, and this is yi, and this is we. Again, ni, this is, so instead of being ya, now we're changing the vowel to make it a kasra, it becomes yi. And this one, instead of being wa with a fatha, now it becomes we with a kasra. طيب, what about this one? Now this is nu, nu, and this is you, you, and this is woo, woo. Okay? Let's see how they look inside the word. Let's start with the na. So even though the na looks different compared to the both letters, inside the word it actually looks very similar. We will still have this shape, which is the same shape we have seen with the ba and the ta and the tha. The only difference would be that the dot would be on top this time. And be careful, it's very common to confuse na, which is this one, with ba, which has one dot below. So be careful. Dot on top is na. And this is how the na would look like inside the word. And we will see it now in words. Let's look at the ya. So notice, the ya has two dots below. Two dots below. And again, the ya looks very different compared to the both letters. However, inside words, it would still have this shape. Okay? Which is the same shape we have seen for the ba, for the ta, tha, and na. And now we're seeing it for the ya. And be careful, it's also very common to confuse ya with ta. Remember, ya is this one with 2 dots below. Ta had the 2 dots but on top. So be careful. 2 dots below is ya. And this is how the ya would look like inside the word. So again, notice all of them have 2 dots below. Let's read some words, starting here. So I have this letter with 1 dot on top. So that's na, na. And then I have the alif, and the alif makes the na twice as long. So it's na, na. And then what do I have here? I have the d with a kasra, d. And then I have the ya in orange here. So it's a long vowel. It just makes the d twice as long. So it's d, d. So the entire word is na, di, nadi. And nadi is a gem, nadi. Let's look at this one. Here we have the letter with 2 dots on top. 2 dots on top. So that's ta. Now with the kasra, with this dash below, it becomes t. And then what do we have here? We have this letter with 2 dots below. What letter has 2 dots below in Arabic? It's the ya. And in this case, the ya is in orange, so it's just a long vowel. It's making the t twice as long. So it's t, t. And finally, what do we have here? We have this letter with 1 dot on top, which is the na. It's at the end of the word, so no vowels. So it's just teen, teen, which means figs, the fruit. Now again, if you are still feeling like this is not really clicking, be patient. Believe me, with more examples, with more reading, this will make so much sense. Now, I want you to see one thing. Notice that in this word we have just read, which is na, di. And in this word, teen, we have these 2 letters. And these 2 letters are the same. Both of these are the ya, right? It's just in different positions of the word. So if the ya is at the very end of the word and not connected to anything, it looks like this. And if it's in the middle of the word, connected to both sides, it looks like this. And they both have these 2 dots below. Tamam? طيب. Let's read one more word. Now, what do we have here? We have this letter with 2 dots below. So this is the ya. It's not in orange, so it's just a regular ya sound, ya. And then what do we have here? We have the da with no vowels because it's at the end of the word. So this word is just yed, yed. And yed is a hand. Next one. So what do we have here? The first letter is this one with 1 dot on top. What did have 1 dot on top? Na, na, right? So this is na. And then what do we have? We have the letter with 1 dot below. What did have 1 dot below? So it's the ba, ba. And then what do we have? We have this alif in orange, and the alif is making the ba twice as long. So it's ba, ba. So na, ba. And then what do we have? We have 2 dots on top. So this is the ta. It's at the end of the word, so we don't have vowels, and it's just na, bat. Nabat. And nabat means plant. Let's look at this one now. What do we have at the beginning? The letter with 1 dot on top. This is na. And then we have the letter with 1 dot below. This is ba. And then we have the alif making the ba twice as long. So this is ba, ba. So na, ba. And then what do we have? We have this letter with 2 dots on top. And what does have 2 dots on top in Arabic? The ta. However, the ta here has a kasra, so it's t, t. And then we have this shape, the ya. Remember the 2 dots below? The ya, it's in orange, so it's making the t twice as long. So it's t, t. So na, ba, ti, nabati. And nabati means vegetarian. Next one. What do we have here? We have the letter with 1 dot below. What did have 1 dot below? It's the ba, ba, right? With the dhamma though, this shape, the dhamma, it becomes bu. You're right, bu. What do we have after the bu? What is this shape with 1 dot on top? This is the na, and it's at the end of the word, so no vowels. So this word is just bun, bun. And bun means coffee beans. Okay, now let's look at this word. What do we have here at the beginning? We have this letter with 1 dot below. So what does have 1 dot below? It's the ba. And the ba here has a kasra, so it's actually B. Okay, B. And then what do we have here? Well, we have the letter with one dot on top. What did have one dot on top? It's the na. Na has one dot on top. However, notice that we have a circle as well here. And this circle is basically what we use when we don't have vowels in the middle of the word. So this circle is just telling us that on top of this na, there's no fatha, so it's not na. There's no kasra, so it's not ni. There's no dhamma, so it's not nu. It's just n. So we would read this as bin, bin. And then what do we have at the end? We have the ta, again at the end of the word, no vowels, it's just t. So it's bint, bint. Bint means girl. Bint, bint. What about this word? What do we have at the beginning? We have the letter with one dot below, and below is ba, with the fatha is ba. And then what do we have? We have the letter with one dot on top, and one dot on top is na, na, perfect. And then we have the alif, and the alif makes the na twice as long, so it's na, na. So we have ba, na, and then what do we have at the end? We have the ta, again it's at the very end, so no vowels, it's just t. So ba, nat, banat, and banat means girls. Let's look at this one, and this is a very useful word actually. The first letter we have has one dot below. What does have one dot below? Ba. And it also has a kasra, so it's B, B. And then what do we have? We have the do in here, right? Remember, do, with the dhamma it's do. And then what do we have? We have the wow in orange, so it's a long vowel and it's making the do twice as long. So it's do, do. So what do we have again? We have B, do, and then what do we have at the end? We have this letter with one dot on top, and this is the na, but it's at the end of the word, so no vowels, so it's just n. So this word is bidun, bidun, bidun means without. So if you're ordering coffee and you want it bidun sugar, you can say bidun sukkar, bidun sukkar, without sugar. Let's look at the next one. So what do we have here at the beginning? We have this letter with one dot below, so that's a ba, ba. And then what do we have here? We have this letter with two dots below, so that's the ya, that's the ya, but it has this circle, which means it's not ya, it's not ye, it's not you, it's just e. So it's bay. Again, bay is how I would read these first two letters. Bay. And then what do I have at the end? I have the ta, but with no vowels again, so it's just t, right? So it's bait, bait, and bait is a house, bait. Let's look at the next one. What do I have here at the beginning? Again, I have one dot below, so that's ba, ba. What do I have next? I have two dots below, so that's ya, ya. And the ya here has this circle, and we call this circle sukoon, by the way. So the ya has this circle in here, which means it's not ya, it's not ye, it's not you, it's just e. So it's bay again, bay, just like in the previous word. And then what do I have at the end? I have the na with no vowels, so it's just n. So this word would be bain, bain, and bain means between, bain. Let's look at the next one. What do I have here at the beginning? I have three dots on top. What letter has three dots? It's tha, tha, as in the beginning of three, right? Tha. And then what do I have here? I have the wow, right? But the wow here is not in orange, so it's not making anything long. And it has this circle, which means it doesn't have a fatha, so it's not wa. It doesn't have a kasra, so it's not we. And it doesn't have a dhamma, so it's not woo. It's just woo. So I would read it as thaw, thaw, right? And then what do I have at the end? I have one dot below, so that's the ba. It's at the end of the word, so no vowels, and it's just b. So this word would be thawb, thawb, And thawb is the thobe, the dress that we wear in Saudi Arabia. Let's look at this word. What is the first letter I have in here? It's do. Do, right? Because of the dhamma. And then what do I have in here? I have two dots underneath, which is the ya. Now the ya has a dhamma, so it's actually you. You. So I have do, you. And then I have the wow, but the wow is in orange here, so it's making the u twice as long. So the u now becomes you, you. And then what do I have at the end? I have the na, so the one with one dot on top is na, but it's at the end of the word, so no vowels, and it's just do, yoon, do yoon, and do yoon means debts, do yoon. Let's look at the next one. What do I have here? I have the letter with two dots on top, so it's ta, ta. And then what do I have? This is the da. Remember the da? We have seen at the very, very beginning. Now, the da here has this circle, has the sukoon on top, which means it's not da, it's not di, it's not do, it's just d. So I would read these first two letters as ted, ted. And then what do I have? I have the wow in here. It's not an orange, it's not making anything longer. It actually has a kasra, so this is we, okay? And then what do I have here? I have this letter with two dots underneath. What letter in Arabic has two dots underneath? It's the ya. And here it's in orange, which means it's a long vowel. It's making the we sound twice as long. So this is we. And then what is the last letter I have in here? It's the na, so the one that has one dot on top. This is the na. It's at the end of the word, so no vowels, and it's just n. So let's read the entire word. The first two letters, ted, remember, we have ta and then d, ted, and then we, the ya makes it twice as long, so ween, tedween, tedween, and tedween means documentation. Now let's look at this very interesting word. So what is the first letter we have here? This is the da, and we have seen it, right, at the very beginning of the course. Da, and then we have the alif, and the alif makes the da twice as long. So this becomes da, da. And then what do we have? We have the wow in here. It's not an orange, so it's not making anything longer. It actually has the dhamma on top, so this makes it woo. Woo, right? So it's like a W with the oo sound. Woo. And then what do we have? We have another wow. But this time this is an orange. So this wow is a long vowel. And it's making the previous woo sound twice as long. So this becomes woo. Woo. So again we have da, woo. And then what do we have at the very end? It's the da with no vowels. So it's just d. So the entire word is da wood, which is the Arabic version of the name David. Okay, let's start our first speaking lesson in this course, and we will start with the very basic greeting, right? The most common greeting in Saudi, which is Assalamu alaikum. Again, Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Please repeat after me. Assalamu alaikum, which literally means peace be upon you. But we use it to say hi and every day. Assalamu alaikum. Now, if someone says Assalamu alaikum and you want to reply to them, you'd basically flip it. You'd say Wa alaikum assalam. Again, Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam. So, Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Again, Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Perfect. Now, how do you ask someone, how are you? كيف حالك. Again, كيف حالك. كيف حالك. كيف حالك. So you could say, السلام عليكم كيف حالك. السلام عليكم كيف حالك. And then the most common reply to كيف حالك by far in Saudi is what translates to thank God, which is Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Again, repeat after me. Alhamdulillah. So, كيف حالك؟ Alhamdulillah. كيف حالك؟ Alhamdulillah. كيف حالك؟ Alhamdulillah. So, السلام عليكم. Again, السلام عليكم. And then to reply to this, you say وعليكم السلام. وعليكم السلام. كيف حالك؟ كيف حالك؟ Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Practice these over and over again until they become a second nature to you. They are very common. We use them every day. Okay, welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we are going to look at 4 more letters, and we are going to look at a technique to make reading in Arabic way easier. Let's start with the letters. So the first letter we have is this one. So we have this wiggly line on top, and then we have this shape that looks like the letter C in English, right? And then we have this dot below the wiggly line. This is Ja. Ja. Now, the second one looks very similar to the Ja, only with no dots at all, and this is Ha. Ha. Right? It's a very sharp Ha sound. Ha. The third one looks very similar to the other two, but it has one dot on top, and this is Kha. Kha. And sometimes we tell a story about these 3 letters. So this first guy, he's a gym bro. He loves going to the gym all the time, and he's always carrying this weight with him, right? And that's why he's called Ja, as in gym. Ja, the gym bro. Now, this gym bro always takes his other 2 brothers with him to the gym. And these 2, they always race on the way to the gym. So the gym is all the way over there, I guess, as you can see it, over there. And these 2 are racing. This guy always runs out of breath, and he starts making sound, running out of breath. This is the ha, because he's slow, right? He gets tired really fast. Ha. What about this guy? He's really faster than the ha, but he's careless. And one day, this weight fell on top of his head, and it was really painful, so he made this noise. Ha, ha, ha. It hurts. So we have Ja, the gym bro, Ha, running out of breath, and Kha, really in pain. Now, what about this one? G with a kasra, and this one with a kasra as well is He, and this one is Khi. What about this one? Ju, and this one is Hu, and this one is Khu. So all of these have the dhamma. Now, let's look at how this letter would look inside the word. So the Ja, if it's at the very end of the word, looks like this. If it's at the very beginning of the word, it looks like that. And you can think of this shape as, like, imagine taking this original shape and then like bending the tail to make it straight. And this makes it a Ja, right? This makes it easier to connect to what comes next. So this is Ja. Now, if Ja needs to connect to the right, then we will have these 2 shapes with an arm to the right. And again, I want you to notice how this part is looking. It looks more like a wave, right? It's more like a wave. Ha looks exactly the same. We will still have this wave in here, but with no dots at all. Kha, again, looks exactly the same, only with 1 dot on top. Now, what helps my students sometimes remember this letter is thinking of this letter as Khalid. And the name Khalid in Arabic, by the way, starts with Kha, with this letter. So maybe think of this dot as Khalid surfing on top of this wave. So this is Khalid surfing on top of the wave. Kha. Let's read some words. Now, before we get into the reading, let me teach you this technique I told you about. And this technique is all about splitting words into syllables in Arabic and then reading each syllable on its own. Sounds like a complicated task, but it's really not. Look at what we're going to do. So we are going to look at all the short vowels, all the haraka qasira. So in this word, for example, I see haraka qasira here, I see a kasra, and I see another kasra there. Now, each haraka qasira would be the beginning of a new syllable. So I will just draw a vertical line before the letter with the حركة قصيرة. So I see حركة قصيرة here, I draw a vertical line before it. I see another حركة قصيرة here, I draw another vertical line in here. And now I have two syllables in this word. This would be one syllable, and this would be the other syllable, right? And then we read each syllable on its own, and then we put them together to get the word. So let's read the first syllable, this one on its own. This is the wave with one dot below. This is ja, right? The jim bro. It has a kasra, so it's actually G. G. What about this one? This is the da. With a kasra, it becomes D. And then we have the ya in here. The ya makes the D twice as long. So this is D. And then we have another da with no vowel. So this is deed. Deed. So the first syllable was G. And the second syllable is deed. And the whole word is jadid. Jadid. And jadid means new. Jadid. Let's look at this one. Again, let's split it into syllables. So how many vowels do you see? How many حركة قصيرة? I see a fatha in here. I see a kasra in here. So we should have two syllables. The first syllable starts before the first حركة, so here. And the second syllable starts before the second حركة, so it starts there. Now, let's read one syllable at a time. Starting with the first syllable. What do we have? We have ha, right? So we have this wave with no dots at all. So this is the one running out of breath. Ha. And then we have the alif making the ha twice as long. So it's ha, ha. We're done with the first syllable. The second syllable, we have the wave with the dot below. So this is the jim bro, right? And with the kasra it becomes G, G. And then I have this letter with one dot below as well. This is the ba with no vowel. So it's just jib. Jib is the second syllable, right? Jib. So the whole word is hajib. Hajib. And hajib is an eyebrow. Next one. Again, I see حركة قصيرة here. So this would be the beginning of a syllable. I see another حركة قصيرة here. So this would be the beginning of the other syllable. And I have two syllables in this word again. Let's read the first syllable on its own. We have Khalid surfing on the wave, right? So this is kha, kha. And then what do we have here? So we have one dot below, that's a ba with a kasra, it's B. The ya makes it twice as long, so it's B. And then we have this letter with three dots on top, so it's beef, beef, kha, beef, khabith, which means evil, khabith. Next one. Again, I see حركة قصيرة here. So I will put a vertical line. I see another حركة قصيرة in here. So I will put another vertical line and I have two syllables. Let's read the first syllable on its own. I see wa with a fatha, so that's wa. And I see the alif making the wa twice as long, so this is wa. And remember, in this course, we will always see long vowels in orange. So wa, and then what do we have? The second syllable, we have this wave with no dots. So this is the guy running out of breath, right? The ha. With the kasra though, it becomes hi, hi. And then we have the da with no vowel, so it's hid. Wahid, wahid, which means one. It's the number one, wahid. Next one. I see one حركة قصيرة here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. And I see a circle in here, but be careful. The circle, the sukoon, is not a حركة قصيرة. It's actually the exact opposite. It's the absence of any حركة. So we only start syllables when we have fatha or kasra or dhamma. And if you forgot what these names are, please go back to the first lesson in this course where we explained the حركة قصيرة. So this circle, we don't count that when we're trying to split words into syllables. So this entire word is just one syllable. Let's read it. We have the wave with one dot below, so that's the ja. And then we have this letter with one dot on top and a circle. So this is the na. Since it has the circle, just n. So this is jan, jan. And then what do we have? We have the ba with no vowels, so it's janb, janb. And janb means next to, janb. Next one. I see a fatha in here, so that will be the beginning of a vowel, of a syllable. I see a dhamma here, so that will be the beginning of another syllable. And then I don't see any other حركة قصيرة. So let's read the first syllable on its own. The wave with one dot below, that's ja. And then what do we have in here? We have this letter with one dot on top. This is the na, remember? And with this dhamma, it becomes nu. The waw makes it twice as long, so it's nu. And then a ba with no vowels is just noob, noob, ja, noob, janoob. And janoob means south. Next one, I see a fatha here, so that would be the beginning of a syllable. I see a kasra here, so I draw a vertical line before the letter with the kasra. And that's it. I don't see any other haraka qasira. So I have two syllables. The first syllable is ha. So this wave with no dots. Ha, running out of breath. Ha. And then deed. Deed. Hadid. And hadid means iron, the metal. And again, please always pause the video first. Try to read the word on your own and then see how I do it. طيب, let's look at this one. I see a fatha here, so that will be the beginning of a new syllable. I see a kasra here, that's the beginning of another syllable, and always I draw this vertical line before the letter with the haraka. So the first syllable is na, twice as long because of the alif, na. The second syllable is jih. So we have the ja with the kasra, it's ji, and then we have the ha, running out of breath with no vowels, so it's just so jih, jih, najih, najih, and najih means successful, najih. The next one we have, I see a fatha in here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. I see a kasra in here, so that will be the beginning of another syllable. Let's read the first syllable on its own. This is just ba, easy, ba. And then what do we have? We have jih. So we have the G, the wave with one dot below, and a kasra, so this is G. The ya makes it twice as long, so it's G. And then the ha with no vowels, the one running out of breath, right? So it's just jih, bajih. Bajih means rude, bajih. Next one, I see one fatha here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. I see a sukoon, and the sukoon doesn't count as a syllable, so the whole word is just one syllable. And it's ja. And then what do we have here? We have the waw. It's not an orange, so it's not making anything longer. It doesn't have a fatha, so it's not wa. It doesn't have a kasra, so it's not we. It doesn't have a dhamma, so it's not wu. It's just u. So this is jaw, jaw, and jaw is a weather, jaw. Let's look at this one. I see a fatha here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. I see another fatha there, that will be the beginning of another syllable. Now, we forget about the word and we read each syllable on its own. The first syllable is simply ja, ja. The second syllable is nah, nah, and the na is twice as long because of the alif. Nah, janah, janah is a sweet. Next one, what do we have in here? First, let's split the word into syllables. So I see a fatha here, so I would draw a vertical line before it. I see another fatha there. So another vertical line before it, and now I have two syllables. The first syllable is simply na, na. The second syllable is jah, jah, najah, which means success. Now, I want you to pay attention to these two letters. Notice here what we have ja, and what do we have here? We have ba. Sometimes students confuse these two letters. Be careful. Yes, they both have one dot below, but the ja looks like a wave. The ba is more like just a vertical stick. Right? So this is ja, this is ba. Let's look at this one. I see a fatha in here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. Another fatha here, a beginning of another syllable. Let's read the first syllable. It's ja, ja, simply, and then ban. This is ba, this is n, and the ba is twice as long because of the alif. So ban, jaban. Jaban means coward. Next one, I see a kasra in here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. I see a fatha in here, that will be the beginning of another syllable. The first syllable reads as he. Remember, this is the wave with no vowels, sorry, with no dots, so it's the one running out of breath. Ha. Now it's with a kasra, so it becomes he, he. What do we have after that? We have the wave with one dot below, that's the ja, ja. It's twice as long, so it's jab, jab. So hijab, hijab, which is the hijab, the headscarf, hijab. Now let's look at the fourth letter for this lesson, which looks like a hook, and this is la, la. What about this one? This is li, and this one is lu. So la, li, and lu. Let's see how the la would look inside words. So if the la is at the beginning of the word, we would just, again, we would take this tail and sort of the tail in here, and we will just make it straight to make it easier to connect to what comes next, as you see in here. So this is la. If la is in the middle of the word, it will again look like one of these two, only with an additional arm to the other side, to the right. Let's look at some words. I see a fatha in here, so that's the beginning of a syllable. I see a fatha in there, that's the beginning of another syllable. Now let's read the first syllable on its own. This is the la, la. And then what do we have in here? Ban, laban. And laban is the liquid yogurt we drink in Saudi. Laban. What about this one? Again, I see a fatha in here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. I see a kasra in here, that will be the beginning of another syllable. Now, let's read the first syllable on its own. It's simply ba, ba. And then the second syllable is, again, we have Khalid surfing. With a kasra, it becomes khi, khi. So, khil, khil. We have the il in here with no vowels. So, ba, khil, bakhil. And bakhil means stingy, bakhil. The next one, I see a fatha in here, that's the beginning of a syllable. Another fatha in there, that's the beginning of another syllable. Let's read the first syllable on its own. It's just wa, wa. And the second syllable is lad, lad. So walad, walad. And walad is a boy. Walad is a boy. Let's look at the next one. I see a fatha in here, so that's the beginning of a syllable. I see a sukoon, the circle in here. Is that the beginning of a new syllable? It's not. So the whole word is just one syllable. Let's try to read it. We have tha, and then we have the la with no vowels, with the circle instead. So it's thal, thal. And then we have the ja with no vowels again. So it's thalj, thalj. And thalj means snow, thalj. Let's look at this one. We have a kasra in here, so that's the beginning of a syllable. We have a dhamma in here, that's the beginning of the second syllable. Now let's read one syllable at a time. The first syllable is basically hi. The wave with no dots, so it's running out of breath. Ha. With a kasra, it becomes hi, hi. The second syllable is lu with a waw to make it twice as long, so it's lu, hilu. And hilu means beautiful, hilu. Next one. I see a fatha in here, so that's the beginning of a syllable. I see a kasra in here, that's the beginning of another syllable. The first syllable is simply ha, ha, running out of breath, and then we have lib, lib, halib, and halib means milk, halib. The next one, I see a fatha in here, so that's the beginning of a syllable. I see a kasra in here, so that's the beginning of the second syllable. Now let's read the first syllable on its own. We have this dot on top of the wave, so this is Khalid surfing, so this is kha, with the alif to make it twice as long, so it's kha, kha. And then what do we have in here? We have the la with a kasra, so it's actually li, and then the da with no vowel, so it's lid, khalid, Khalid. And Khalid, this is the name Khalid. Let's look at the next one. I see a fatha in here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. I see a sukoon in here, the circle, and that doesn't count. So this is one syllable, and the first letter is la, and then what do we have in here? Again, remember, two dots below is ya. The ya has a circle in here, so we read it as lay, with no vowels. Lay. And then what do we have? I have another la with no vowels, so it's layl, layl. And layl means night, layl. Let's look at the next one. Again, I see a fatha in here, so that's the beginning of a syllable. And the sukoon here doesn't count, so this is one syllable actually. Again, we have la, and then we have the wa with no vowel, so it's law, law. And then what do we have? We have the na with no vowels as well, so it's lawn, lawn. And lawn is a color, lawn. Welcome to the second speaking lesson in this unit. In this lesson, we are going to see how to say good morning and good evening. But first, let's review what we have seen in the previous lesson. How do we say hi in Saudi? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. And how do you respond to that? وعليكم السلام. وعليكم السلام. Assalamu alaikum. وعليكم السلام. How do you say how are you? كيف حالك. كيف حالك. And how do you say thank God, which is the most common reply to كيف حالك? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. By the way, we are going to see all of these expressions and all the expressions that we will learn in the speaking series in this unit at the end of the unit, and we will write them down and read them and everything. For now, I don't want you to try to find them written down either in Arabic or in English. Just listen and try to repeat. We will see them all again. طيب. How do you say good morning? صباح الخير. Try to repeat after me. صباح الخير. صباح الخير. صباح الخير. Good morning. صباح الخير. Now, if we want to reply to someone who said صباح الخير, then we should say صباح النور. صباح النور. صباح الخير. صباح النور. Again, صباح الخير. صباح النور. طيب, what about good evening? مساء الخير. مساء الخير. مساء الخير. Good evening. And how do you reply if someone says مساء الخير? مساء النور. مساء النور. مساء النور. So مساء الخير. مساء النور. Again, مساء الخير. مساء النور. Always please try to repeat with me. تمام? So again, good morning is صباح الخير. And to reply to that, we say صباح النور. And then good evening is مساء الخير. And to reply to this, we say مساء النور. مساء النور. In this lesson, we are going to talk about two very, very important concepts in Arabic. And we will start reading sentences with these two concepts. So please pay attention and let's look at the first one. So the first one is this one. What do you think this one is? We have the stick here. This is the Alif. And then we have the La in here with no vowels. And this is Il. We read it as Il. And it translates to the in English. All right. For example, let's read this word. We have seen it before. It's Bait. Bait, which means house. Now, if I want to say the house, I will add il at the beginning. So it becomes il bait, the house. And notice that il connects to the word. So it's not a separate word. It's just a prefix for words. Il bait. طيب, let's look at this word. Walad. Walad. And walad is a boy. If I want to say the boy, again, I will just add il at the beginning and it becomes il walad. Il walad. And again, notice il is connected, just now part of the word. Il walad. And this is how it looks like. So you have the alif and then the la. Il walad, the boy. Il walad. Let's look at another example. This word is, by the way, feel free to pause the video and try to read these words first. I'm reading them really fast because we have seen all of these in the previous lessons. So this is Nadi, Nadi, which means a gym. What if I want to say the gym? Il Nadi, Il Nadi, the gym. Another example, and again, notice il is connected. Another example would be this word, which is thawb, thawb, and this is a thawb. It's what I'm wearing currently. This is the white traditional dress we wear in Saudi. Thawb is a thawb. How would I say the thawb? Il thawb. And again, notice how the il look like at the beginning. Il thawb. Another example, we have layl, layl, which means night, layl. But if I want to say the night, il layl. And notice I have il here to say the, and then I have layl, il layl, the night. الليل. This word is bint, bint, and bint is a girl. What if I would say the girl? البنت, البنت, and again it's connected. Let's now read some sentences, and actually it would be really useful to split sentences into smaller syllables, read each syllable on its own, and then read the whole thing. So the first syllable would be here at the very beginning of the sentence, and then we follow the rule, which is we look for حركة قصيرة like this fatha in here, and we draw a vertical line before that. If you have forgotten what we're doing here, please refer to the previous lesson where we explained how syllables work in Arabic. So I see another fatha here, that will be the beginning of a new syllable, and a kasra here, that will be the beginning of a new syllable. Let's read the first word. The first syllable is basically il, and il is always a syllable, right? Il, and then thawb, il thawb, the thawb, and then the second word, we have the first syllable of it is ja, and then deed, jadid, and jadid means new. So il thawb jadid means the thawb is new. The thawb is new. Let's look at the second sentence we have. Again, let's split it into syllables. So here, one at the very beginning, one before this fatha, one before that fatha, one before this fatha, and one before this kasra. Okay, the first syllable of the first word is il, and then wa, and then lad. Il walad. Walad was a boy, and then il walad is the boy. So the boy, and then na jih. Najih. Najih means successful. So il walad najih means the boy is successful. Il walad najih. Let's look at this one. Again, try to pause the video, see if you can read it on your own, and then come back and see what I'm doing. We will start with the syllable here at the very beginning, and then another syllable here before the fatha, and then one more syllable starting here before this fatha. The first syllable is again il, and then jaw, il jaw, and il jaw means the weather, il jaw, and then we have thalj, thalj, and we said before thalj, we translated thalj to snow, but in this context it means the weather is freezing. When we say the weather is snow or the weather is ice, it means it's freezing. Now let's read this sentence. Again, let's split it into syllables. The first one starting here, the second one starting here before this kasra, and then before that kasra, and then before this dhamma. Now I see something that should be in orange. So this wow, guys, this should be in orange. Sorry, my bad. Just assume this is in orange. So this is حركة طويلة, long vowel. Let's read the first syllable. Il, and then teen, il teen. Teen was figs, so il teen means the figs. And then hi, running out of breath with a kasra. Hi, lu, that's a long vowel. I'm sorry, it should be in orange. Hilu, remember hilu, we said it's beautiful, it also means sweet. So il teen hilu means the figs are sweet. Il teen hilu. Now let's read this big sentence. Again, it's very easy. Let's just split into syllables. So the first syllable starts here, before the fatha, before this kasra. And the second word, we see only one haraka, so it's only one syllable. And then before the il in here, and before the fatha. Yalla, let's read them. Il is the first syllable. Nadi. Nadi was a gym, so il nadi means the gym. But then janb, janb, which means next to. And then il bayt. Il bayt. Bayt was a house, and then il bayt is the house. Il nadi janb il bayt means the gym is next to the house. Il nadi janb il bayt. And in Arabic, it's literally the gym next to the house. Now let's look at this very important shape in Arabic. So this small shape, which sort of looks like number 2, but looking to the other side, this is what we call Hamza. And we usually write this Hamza on top of an Alif. And the way to pronounce the Hamza is basically a. Again, a. That's if it has a fatha. Now Hamza could also have a kasra. And if it has a kasra, it becomes e. E. So again, Hamza with a fatha is a, and Hamza with a kasra is e. What about Hamza with a dhamma? Hamza with a dhamma is u. So again, a and e and u, all of these are the same letter in Arabic. All of these are the Hamza. So the Hamza in Arabic is the letter that is responsible for the a, e, u sounds. So for us in Arabic, the name Ahmad, for example, starts with Hamza and then Alif, Ahmad. The name Ibrahim or Edward or any other name starting with E in English would be starting with a Hamza and a Kasra in Arabic, E. And then my name, Osamah, would be starting with a Hamza again with a Dhamma. Okay? So in Arabic, A, E, U, one letter, different vowels. Let's look at some words. Let's start with this one. I see a Fatha here and a Fatha there, two syllables. The first syllable is basically A. And then Na. Ana, and ana is I. Ana, the pronoun. Next one, we have one syllable, right? Because we have only one haraka. And then this is a, and then ant, ant, ant. And ant means you. Ant is you. However, I only use ant if I'm talking to a male, right? Because if I'm talking to a female, I would use this one. Let's look at this one. I see a haraka in here. So that's the beginning of a vowel, of a syllable. Another haraka in here, so that's the beginning of another syllable. Now the first syllable is an, and the second syllable is ti, and I hope you can see why I'm doing this. So anti is you, but if I'm talking to a female, right? So anti. And again, don't worry about these. Our goal now is to just read. We will look at all of these sentences, the expressions, the pronouns, and everything in details in the coming units. But for now, our primary focus is on reading and only reading. Let's look at this one. So I see a fatha in here, that will be a beginning of a syllable. I see a dhamma in here, so before the dhamma, we start a new syllable. Now the first syllable is a, and the second syllable is bu, abu. Abu, and Abu means father. Next one, again I see a fatha in here, and I see a dhamma in here, so I will start a syllable there. So this is a, and this is khu. This is Khalid surfing. Khu, akhu, and akhu means brother. Akhu. Let's look at this one. I see a kasra in here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable, and I don't see any other vowels, so it's only one syllable. And this would be e. Icht, 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 and icht is a sister. Icht. Let's look at this one. I see a fatha in here, so I would start a syllable right before the fatha. I see another fatha in here, so another syllable will start here right before this fatha. Now the first syllable is a, the second syllable is had. Had, ahad, which means Sunday. Ahad. What about this one? Okay, now this looks scary, so let's break it down. I see a kasra in here, so a syllable would start right before the kasra. I see a fatha in here, so a syllable would start right before the fatha. And now this should be easier to read. Let's look at the first syllable on its own. This is e, and this is the tha with no vowels, so it's just if. Awesome. The second syllable, we have nain. So here we have the ya, but the ya doesn't have any vowels, no fatha, no kasra, no dhamma, so it's just e. So this is nain. So the whole word is ithnain, and ithnain means Monday. Ithnain. Next one. Now let's read these sentences. Starting with the first word, this is na, ana, which means I, ana. The second word we have abu, and abu means father. And then we have Khalid, and Khalid is a name. Now, Abu Khalid means Khalid's father. Abu Khalid, Khalid's father. So, Ana Abu Khalid, I am Khalid's father. Ana Abu Khalid. Let's look at another sentence. Let's read the first word. Ant, which is you if I'm talking to a male. Ant. The second one is Akhu, and remember, Akhu was brother. Akhu. And the third one is Leen. Now, Leen is a name of a person, a name of a female. And Akhu Leen means Leen's brother. Just like Abu Khalid meant Khalid's father. Akhu Leen, Leen's brother. So, Ant Akhu Leen, question mark. Are you Leen's brother? Ant Akhu Leen. Let's look at another example. Here we have Anti, which is again you, but this time I'm talking to a female. Anti. Second word is, as you see here, bint, which means girl or daughter. So we translated this to girl before. It also means daughter, bint. And then we have khulud. And khulud is the name of a person, a name of a female. And again, bint khulud means Khulud's daughter, right? So, Anti bint Khulud, question mark. Anti bint Khulud, are you Khulud's daughter? Let's look at this one. So the first word is Bayt, which means house. The second word is Layan. Layan is a name of a person, a name of a female. And then Bayt Layan would be Layan's house. So it's the other way in Arabic. Bayt Layan means Layan's house. And then Hilu, which means beautiful. So Bayt Layan, Hilu, Layan's house is beautiful. Let's look at this one. We have Thawb, and this is a thawb, the thawb that we wear. And then we have Walid, and Walid is the name of a person, a name of a guy. So Thawb Walid would be Walid's thawb, Thawb Walid, and then Jadid, which means new. Thawb Walid, Walid's thawb, Jadid is new. Walid's thawb is new. Thawb Walid Jadid. Welcome to the third speaking lesson in this unit. And in this lesson, we are going to see how to ask someone about their name and then also how to show respect when someone tells us about their name according to the Saudi culture. But first, let's again review what we have seen in the speaking lessons before. How to say hi? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. How do you reply? وعليكم السلام. وعليكم السلام. How do we say how are you? كيف حالك. كيف حالك. And how do you respond with thank God? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. كيف حالك? Alhamdulillah. طيب, what about good morning? صباح الخير. صباح الخير. How do you respond? صباح النور. صباح النور. How do you say good evening? مساء الخير. مساء الخير. And how do you reply? مساء النور. مساء النور. طيب, let's look at the new expressions we have for today. What's your name is وش اسمك. وش اسمك. وش اسمك. وش اسمك. What's your name? وش اسمك. What's your name? And then to respond to that with my name is Osamah, which is my name, I would say اسمي Osamah. اسمي Osamah. So again, وش اسمك. اسمي Osamah. وش اسمك. اسمي Osamah. Now, whenever someone tells you about their name or their hometown or their family in the Saudi culture, you should always show respect by saying والنعم. والنعم. And you will see what this is weird sound I'm making in the future. والنعم. والنعم, which means like that's so honorable. This shows like a lot of respect for the other person's name or family or hometown. And again, we will see all of that in details in the coming units, especially when we talk about nationalities and expressing that. But for now, if someone says, اسمي أسامة, اسمي خالد, اسمي سارة, اسمي whatever, you should say, والنعم, والنعم. And the way to respond politely to والنعم is to say, ما عليك زود. Try to repeat after me. ما عليك زود. ما عليك زود. Which means you're just as honorable. So, والنعم ما عليك زود. والنعم ما عليك زود. طيب, let's look at this again. What's your name was وش اسمك. وش اسمك. To respond to that with my name is Osama. اسمي أسامة. اسمي أسامة. So again, وش اسمك. اسمي أسامة. And then that's so honorable. We would say والنعم. والنعم. Again, والنعم. And then if someone says والنعم to you, you should respond with ما عليك زود. ما عليك زود. ما عليك زود. You're just as honorable. Welcome to this lesson in this unit. In this lesson, we are going to look at 4 new letters, and we call these letters one-handed letters for a reason that I will show you in a second. Let's start with this one. This is da, and I hope you remember this letter. We have seen it a lot now. Da. However, there's another letter in Arabic that looks very similar to the da, but has 1 dot on top, and this is the. The, as in the word that in English. The. Now, what about this one? The, perfect. And this one is the. The, as in the word these in English. These, the. What about this one? This is do. And then the one with the dot would be thu. Thu. Now, the good thing about do and thu is that they could only connect to what comes before them. They could only connect to the right? And that's why we call them one-handed letters. And that's why sometimes in the word, and you will see what I mean in a second, sometimes in the words you will see that some letters are not connected. Even though in Arabic we always try to connect letters. Why does that happen? Because we have 6 letters in Arabic that do not connect to what comes after them. They only connect to what comes before them, right? And these do and thu are one of these 6 letters. Let's look at the rest of them. The next letter we have looks like a crescent, looks like the moon at the beginning of the month. And this is ra. Ra. Again, I know it might be difficult because the tongue is rolling a little bit, but it's ra. 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 Now, there's another letter that also looks very similar to the ra, but has a dot on top, and this is za. Za, like the letter Z in English. Za. Ra and za. And notice that in both of these letters, the ra and the za, the tongue is vibrating. So we have vibrations, right? Ra, za. Ra and za. Now, what about this one? This is ri, and this one is zi. Ri and zi. This one is ru, and this one is zu. Zu. Now again, ru and zu, they only connect to what comes before them, but not to what comes after them. And that's why their shape doesn't change. Now, we said the da and the tha and the ra and za. These are 4 letters that only connect to one side. We have 2 more letters that we have already covered before, which are the alif and the waw. So the alif never connects to what comes afterwards, and the waw also doesn't connect to what comes afterward. They only connect to the right. Let's look at some words, and then you will see better what I'm trying to say. So let's look at this word. I see 1 dhamma, so it's only 1 syllable, and this is ru, and then z, ruz, ruz, and ruz means rice. Notice how they are not connected. Now let's look at this word. We have a fatha in here, and we have another fatha in there, 2 syllables. So the first letter is da, And the second syllable is jaj. Jaj. Now notice how the da is not connected to the ja. And also notice how the alif is not connected to the ja. So these two are one of the 6 one-handed letters. They only have one hand. Dajaj is chicken. Dajaj. طيب, let's look at this word. We have only one syllable. So this is har. Har, which means hot. Har. Let's look at the next one. I see a fatha in here. So a syllable would start right before it. I see a kasra in here. So a syllable would start right before it. Let's read the first syllable. Ba, twice as long, and then red. Ba, red. Now, again, notice the alif is not connected to the ra because the alif is one-handed, and then the ri in here is not connected to the da because the ri is one-handed. So, barid means cold. Barid. Next one, we have the. Remember, with the kasra it becomes the. Veeb. Veeb, which means a wolf. Again, notice that the V is not connected to the ya. Veeb. Let's look at this one. Let's split it into syllables first. So a syllable would start here before this fatha. Another syllable would start here before that fatha. And then a third syllable would start here before this kasra. So the first syllable is za, and then ba, and then di. Zabadi. Zabadi, which is yogurt. Zabadi. Again, notice that the za is not connected to the ba, and notice that the d is not connected to the ya. Next one, we have two vowels, so I see two syllables as well, one starting here and one starting there. The first syllable is ji, and then dar. Jidar, and jidar means a wall. Jidar. Next one, I see only one vowel in here, so the entire word is only one syllable, and this would be dirj. Dirj. And dirj means a drawer. Next one, I see again one vowel in here, so it's one syllable. Now, here we have the Hamza. Remember what the Hamza was? It was a and e and u. Now, in this case, Hamza has the circle, which means it doesn't have any vowels, so it's just So this word would be ra'i. Ra'i, which means opinion. Ra'i. Let's look at the next one. I see two vowels in here, so we have two syllables. The first syllable is da, and then raj. Da, raj. Daraj, and daraj is a staircase. Next one. I see one vowel, so it's only one syllable. We have zain. Zain. And zain means nice. Zain. Let's look at some sentences now. So the first word we have in here, let's split it into syllables. We have one syllable at the beginning of the sentence, one syllable here before the dhamma, and one syllable there before the fatha. So the first syllable is il, ruz. Now ruz was rice, so il ruz means the rice, and then har, har, which means hot. El ruz har, the rice is hot. Let's look at the next one. Again, let's split it into syllables. And I hope that splitting a word or a sentence into syllables is now easy for you. طيب. The first syllable is il, and then ha, running out of breath. Il ha, and then lib, il halib. Now, halib is milk. Il halib is the milk. And then ba, red, barid, which means cold. Il halib barid. The milk is cold. Il halib barid. Now let's look at this letter, which is very essential in Arabic. It looks like a circle, and this is ha. Ha. So this is the regular ha, the same one we have in English in words like house or hammer, right? Ha. Now, ha with a kasra would be he, as in the pronoun he in English, right? And then ha with the dhamma is who, as in the question who in English. So this is ha, he, who, and be careful. It's very easy to confuse ha with ha, which is the one running out of breath. Let me do them side by side so that you can hear the difference. This one is ha. The other one is ha, 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 ha. Okay? Now, the ha is honestly a little bit crazy because it has 4 completely different shapes depending on its position in the word, but we will have to get used to it. So if ha is at the very end, it just looks like a circle. If ha is at the beginning of the word, it looks like this. It's like having 2 loops inside of each other, right? So we have 2 loops, one big and one small, and they are inside of each other. This is ha. If ha is connected to both sides, we would still have these 2 loops, but now we have one on top, one below. Maybe it looks like lungs to me because you're breathing, you're saying ha. And then finally, ha, if it's only connected to the right, then it looks like this, which some of my students think like it looks like a llama, right? So this is ha, this is ha, this is ha, and this is ha. Let's look at some words which hopefully will make it easier. طيب, I see a kasra in here, so that will be the beginning of a syllable. I see a fatha in here, that will be the beginning of a syllable. The first syllable is he. So see, we have these 2 loops inside of each other. He. And the second syllable is na, na, long. So hina, and hina means here, hina. Next one, let's split this into syllables. I see a fatha in here, I see another fatha in here, and there's a fatha, so I draw a vertical line before it. The first syllable is basically ba, ba. The second syllable, now see, I have this long in here, which is ha again. So this is ha, it's twice as long because of the alif, so ha, ba, ha, and then rat, rat, baharat, and baharat means spices, baharat. Let's look at the next one. I see a fatha in here, so I will draw a vertical line before it. I see a kasra in here, so I will draw a vertical line before it. Now, the first syllable is na, the second syllable is Z, and then we have this lama, which is the sound. So nazih, we don't have vowels for it because it's at the end. So nazih, nazih, which means not corrupt. Let's look at the next one. So the first letter is wa, and then la, and then da, and then we have this circle, which is the sound. So this is da, wa, la, da. Waladah, which means his son. Waladah. Let's look at this one. I see 2 syllables, one here and one there. So the first syllable is ja. The second syllable, see, we have these 2 loops inside of each other. So this is he. So his. Ja, his. And ja, his means ready. Ja, his. Let's look at the next one. I see a syllable starting here and a syllable starting there. So the first syllable is na. The second syllable, we see this long in here, so this is the ha breathing. So this is har, har, nahar, and nahar means daytime. Nahar. Next one, I see a kasra, so that's the beginning of a syllable. I see a fatha, that's the beginning of another syllable. So the first syllable is bin, bin. And the second syllable we have tah, tah. Again, I have the ha at the end here with no vowel, so it's just tah, bintah. And bintah means his daughter, bintah. Let's look at this one. I see a syllable starting here, and I see another syllable starting there. And the first syllable is a, the second syllable is boo, boo. Again, we have the at the end, and abu means his father. Abu. Let's look at this word. So I see a syllable starting here and a syllable starting there. The first syllable is ra, and then heeb, heeb. Again, see these 2 loops, the he sound. Rahib, which means amazing. Rahib, rahib. Now, this one is funny. And this is actually how it looks like when we want to say ha 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 on WhatsApp, for example. We just literally put ha 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 ha, and this is how they look like when they are connected. So this is the ha at the beginning, And then this is the ha when it's connected to both sides and it's repeated. And then this is the ha at the end. So this is ha 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 ha. طيب, let's look at this very, very important and actually the most important word from everything that we have seen in this lesson, which is هذا. هذا. And هذا means this. هذا is this. However, I want you to notice that we are pointing at a male. Because if we were pointing at a female, it would be a different word. Actually very similar, but still different. It would be هذه. هذه. So we have هذا and هذه. We use one when we are pointing at males and one when we are pointing at females, and they both translate to this. هذا, هذه. Let's look at some sentences. So here we have هذا, this, ولد, ولد, which is a boy. So هذا ولد, this is a boy. Let's look at the next one. We have هذه, this, pointing at a female, and then بنت, بنت, which is a girl. So هذه بنت, this is a girl. هذه بنت. Now let's look at this one. Again we have هذا, this, هذا, and then باب. Bab was a door. So هذا باب means this is a door. هذا باب. Let's look at the next one. هذه يد. هذه, this, يد is a hand. So هذه يد means this is a hand. Now notice something. With door, we used هذا. And with hand, we used هذه. Which means we treated bab, which is door, as a masculine name. And we treated yad, which is the hand, as a feminine name. And this is correct. So every single noun in Arabic, door, hand, table, room, office, car, lesson, everything would be either treated as a masculine or as a feminine noun. And we will see how this works in the future, and especially in the next lesson. But for now, you need to know that a door in Arabic is always treated as a masculine noun. So we always use هذا with a door. A hand is always treated as a feminine noun. So we always use هذه with a hand. I cannot say هذا يد. This would not work. طيب, let's look at this word. هذا, again, this, masculine, هذا. And then what do we have in here? We have بيتي, بيتي, my house. هذا بيتي, this is my house. And notice with house, we're using هذا. So it means we always treat the word بيت, which means house in Arabic, as a masculine noun. Let's look at the next one. هذا بيته, بيته, his house. So this is his house. هذا بيته. Welcome to the fourth lesson of the speaking lessons in this unit. And in this lesson, we are going to see how we can say please and thank you in Arabic. But before we do this, again, let's review and go over everything we have seen so far. So, how do you say hi? Assalamu alaikum. How do you respond? وعليكم السلام. How do you ask someone how are you? كيف حالك? كيف حالك? And how do you respond with thank God? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. How do you say good morning? صباح الخير. صباح الخير. And how do you respond to صباح الخير? صباح النور. صباح النور. And how do you say good evening? مساء الخير. مساء الخير. And how do you respond to someone telling you مساء الخير? مساء النور. مساء النور. How do you ask someone what's your name? وش اسمك. وش اسمك. وش اسمك. And how do you say my name is Osamah? Of course you should say your name. اسمي أسامة. اسمي خالد. اسمي سارة, right? And then remember, whenever someone tells you about their name, hometown, family, to show respect, you should say والنعم. والنعم, which means that's so honorable. والنعم. And how do you respond to someone saying والنعم to you? ما عليك زود. ما عليك زود. You're just as honorable. ما عليك زود. Now, let's look at how we can say please in Arabic. Please would be لو سمحت. لو سمحت. لو سمحت. لو سمحت, please. However, notice that we are saying لو سمحت to a male. Because if we want to say please to a female, it would be لو سمحتي. لو سمحتي. لو سمحتي. So again we have لو سمحت if I'm talking to a male, لو سمحت, and then لو سمحتي if I'm talking to a female. لو سمحتي, please, right? Next, how do you say thanks in Arabic? شكرا. 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 Thanks. شكرا. And how do you reply to شكرا? عفوا. 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 شكرا. عفوا. شكرا. عفوا. So again, please to a male is لو سمحت. لو سمحت. Please to a female is لو سمحتي. لو سمحتي. Thanks is شكرا. شكرا. And you're welcome is عفوا. عفوا. In this lesson, we are going to see a letter that will really show you why learning how to read in Arabic is really important, because it's hard to represent this letter in other languages. And this letter is this. It looks like a circle, very similar to the ha that we have seen previously, but it has two dots on top, and we call this ta marbuta. Now, the good news about ta marbuta is that it could only appear at the end of words. So it has only these two shapes. The regular shape of a ha, the circle, or the lama shape of the ha with the two dots on top. Let's look at some words with this letter and see how this would sound. So the first step would be to split the word into syllables. So I am looking for حركة قصيرة and I'm putting vertical lines before them. The first syllable here is na, and then ti, and then jah. Natija. Do I really pronounce the ta marbuta? Not really. It's just there, and we will see why it's useful in a second. So natija is a result. Natija. Let's look at another example. So I see a kasra here. That will be the beginning of a syllable, a fatha, and another fatha. So we have three syllables. The first syllable is zi, and then ba, and then la. Zibala. And zibala means trash. Now, let's look at this word, and now we will start to understand why ta marbuta is really important in Arabic. So this word we have seen before is jadid. Jadid, and jadid means new. However, I will only use jadid to describe masculine nouns, right? So if I want to say the boy is new here, I would use jadid. But what if I want to say the girl is new here, and we will see all of these sentences in a second, then I will need to add the ta marbuta to the word. So adding a ta marbuta to a word makes this word feminine. So this word is jadida, basically the same as jadid, only with the ta marbuta at the end. Jadida, and jadida means new, but we use it with feminine nouns. We will see that in some sentences in a second, but now let's look at another example. Here we have ra, and then heeb, rahib. If you remember this word, rahib meant amazing. But again, I can only use it to describe males or masculine nouns. So I could say Khalid rahib. Khalid is amazing. Abdullah rahib. Abdullah is amazing, and these are males. But if I want to say Sarah is amazing, then I need to add the ta marbuta. I would say Sarah rahiba. Rahiba. So again, rahiba would be amazing, but the feminine version of the word. Let's look at another important example. We have zawj, zawj, and zawj is a husband, zawj. You can also think of a husband as a male spouse. Then what would be the feminine version of a spouse, the female spouse? Zawja. So just adding a ta marbuta, zawja, and zawja would be a wife. Zawj, zawja, husband and wife. Let's look at some examples now. So here we have الولد, the boy, الولد, جديد is new, جديد, هنا, here, الولد جديد هنا, the boy is new here. Let's look at this sentence now. البنت, so the girl, جديدة, notice that I'm adding a تاء مربوطة to make جديدة feminine. البنت جديدة هنا, البنت جديدة هنا, the girl is new here. طيب, let's go back to this word. This was زوج, and we said زوج is a husband. What about this one? زوجي, this time. زوجي. Now, زوجي is my husband. So if I add the E at the end of nouns in Arabic, it makes it my. زوجي is my husband. What about this one? زوجة. And زوجة is a wife. What if I want to say my wife? It means I have to add something. I have to add the E after the ta marbuta, right? And we said the ta marbuta could only appear at the end of words. And that's why when I add anything after the ta marbuta just goes back to becoming a regular ta. Let's look at this one. Let's split it into syllables. So the first syllable will be zaw, and then ja, zawja, which is a wife, and then ti, zawjati, my wife, zawjati. So we initially had a ta marbuta here for zawja, but then since we're adding the E to make it my, the ta marbuta turns into a regular T, because ta marbuta could only appear at the end of words. Zawjati, my wife. Let's look at this example. Zawji, my husband. Zawji, rahib. Rahib is amazing, so my husband is amazing. Zawji, rahib. What about this one? Zawjati, so my wife. Zawjati, rahiba. Rahiba is amazing, but with a ta marbuta because I'm talking about my wife, which is a female. Zawjati rahiba. My wife is amazing. Let's look at this word, which you have probably heard a lot before. Let's split it into syllables. So the first syllable is ha, and then bi. Habibi means my dear. Habibi, right? And the E at the end is the my part of it. Habibi. Now, I can only use this when I'm talking to a male. If I'm talking to a female, then I should say Habibti. Habibti. Why the T here? Because it's a female there. So this T used to be a ta marbuta, but then it turned into a T because we're adding the E, which means my. So Habibti also means my dear, but I use it with females. Habibi and Habibti. Now let's look at two more letters in Arabic. The first one is this one. And this is ka. Ka. Tamam. This one is ki. And this one is ku. Ka, ki, and ku. Let's see how the ka would look like inside the word. So this is the shape we have just seen, is the shape of the ka at the very end of the word. If the ka is at the very beginning, it looks different. It looks like this. It's sort of like taking this shape inside and then just like zooming in. So this is the ka. And if the ka needs to connect to the right, we will add an arm to it on the right side. Let's look at another letter, which is this one. This letter to me looks like a magic wand, and hence it's ma. Ma, magic. This one is mi, and this one is mu with a dhamma. Again, let's look at how the magic wand would look inside the word. So the scene we have, the shape we have just seen is the ma at the very end. If it's at the very beginning, it looks different. And again, we have to just get used to this. So this is the ma at the beginning, this is the ma at the end, and then if we need to connect it to the right, we just add this additional arm to it. Let's look at some words. This will always make it easier to understand. Let's look at the first word. I'm splitting the word into syllables. The first syllable is mu, right? So this is the ma at the beginning with a dhamma, it's mu. And then dir, mudir, mudir, which is a manager. But this is a male manager. What do you think a female manager would be? We would add a ta marbuta, right? So it would be mudira, mudira. So you have mudir, mudira. Both are managers, but one is male, one is female. Let's look at this word. I am splitting this into syllables. So the first syllable is ki, and then bir, kibir. Kibir means big, but I would only use it to describe a male or something that is masculine. What if I'm describing a female? Then I would add a ta marbuta, and it becomes kibira, kibira, which means big but feminine. طيب, let's look at this word. The first syllable is ki, and then tab, kitab, and kitab is a book. So this is ki because of the kasra. Next one, we have only one syllable, and the first letter is the ka again. So this is kalb, 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 and kalb is a dog. Kalb. Let's look at one more word, and let me split this into syllables. So the first syllable is ma. This is the shape of the ma at the beginning, ma. And then we have di, na, Medina. And Medina is a city. Medina. Now, since Medina ends with a ta marbuta, it means the word city in Arabic, the word Medina in Arabic is always treated as feminine. So if I would say this is a city, I would say هذه Medina rather than هذا. Let's look at this word. Let me split it into syllables. So the first syllable, it has both of the letters that we have just seen, ma and k, mak, mak, and then tab, maktab, maktab, which is an office. Next word, let me split it into syllables. So the first syllable has this letter doubled, right? So we see mu here, and then another m, but with no vowels. So it's mum, mum, and then we see the ka with the kasra, so it's ki. Kin, mumkin, mumkin, which means maybe, mumkin, mumkin. Next one, we have only one syllable, and this is yaw, and then we have the magic wand with no vowels, so it's yawm, and yawm is a day, yawm, one day, yawm. Let's look at the next one. Again, we have only one syllable, and it's lahm. Again, we have the magic wand at the end with no vowels. Lahm, and lahm is meat, lahm. Next one, let's split this into syllables. The first syllable is ma, ma. The second syllable is lik. This is the ka with no vowels. Lik. So ma, lik, malik, malik, which is a king. Next one, we have only one syllable, and it's mi, min, min. And min means from, min. Next one, let's split this into syllables. So we have a syllable here at the very beginning of the word, and then before this haraka, before this haraka, and before this haraka. Yalla, the first syllable is il, which means the, il. The second syllable, we have ma, and then we have another m in here with no vowels. So mam, mam. So il, mam. And then la, and finally ka, with a ta marbuta at the end. Ka. Il mamlaka. Il mamlaka. And il mamlaka means the kingdom. Il mamlaka. Notice that the word kingdom ends with a ta marbuta in Arabic, which means we always treat it as a feminine word. So if I would say this is the kingdom, I would say هذه المملكة. هذه المملكة. Let's look at some sentences now. So here we have الكتاب, الكتاب, the book, الكتاب, رهيب, رهيب, which is amazing. الكتاب, رهيب, the book is amazing. Notice we don't have is, by the way, in Arabic, it's just like the book, amazing. الكتاب, رهيب. What about this sentence? هذه, remember هذه, it's this, but we are pointing at a female or something that is feminine. هذه, and then we have المدينة, المدينة, which means the city. So هذه المدينة, this city, كبيرة, كبيرة. Remember, كبير was big, and then كبيرة is also big, but we use it with feminine nouns. Since we're describing Medina, and Medina is feminine because it ends with a ta marbuta, then كبيرة should also end with a ta marbuta. هذه المدينة كبيرة. The city is big. Next one. أنا I am من from Canada. Canada. أنا من Canada. I am from Canada. Next one, we have ولد. ولد is a boy or a son. In this case, ولد. What about this one? ولدك. ولدك. We're adding the ik sound to it and it makes it your son. ولدك. Let's look at the next one. We have bint. And bint is a girl. It also means a daughter. Bint. Now, this one is bintik. Again, we're adding the ik to it and it makes it your daughter. Bintik. Bintik. Let's look at the next one. We have mudir. Mudir, which is a manager, a male manager. Now, if we add the ik at the end of it, it becomes mudirik. Mudirik, which is your manager. Mudirik, your manager. Let's look at this one. Mudira. So this is again a manager, but this time a female manager. Mudira. Why is it a female? Because it ends with the ta marbuta. Mudira. Now, what if I want to say your manager and we're talking about the female manager, mudira? So I want to add the ik to it. Remember, ta marbuta could only be at the end of words. So if I need to attach anything after the ta marbuta just becomes a regular T. And that's why we have mudiratik. Mudiratik. Your manager, but this time we're talking about a female. Mudiratik. And again, if this is not clicking yet, don't worry. We will see this in the coming units. For now, our main focus is reading, and then we are just trying to get used to some of the concepts in Arabic while trying to read. So mudiratik is your female, but this time we're talking about a female. Sorry, mudiratik is your manager, but a female manager. طيب, the next word, zawj. Zawj means husband. How would I say your husband? I would add the ik at the end. So it becomes zawjik. Zawjik, which is your husband. Zawjik. What about this one? Zawja. Zawja, that was a wife. And how would I say your wife? I would add the ik. Again, notice we have a ta marbuta. So what happens to the ta marbuta? It becomes a regular ta. So it becomes zawjatik. Zawjatik. Your wife. Zawjatik. And now let's wrap up this lesson with this shape. This shape is actually a combination of two letters. It's la and alif. So this is basically la along la, because the first stick in here is the la, the second stick in here is the alif. La. Let's read some words. Let's look at this one. So we have two syllables because I see a fatha in here and a kasra in here. The first syllable is basically la, long because of the alif. La, and then the second syllable is zim. Zim, we have the magic wand in here. Lazim. Lazim, which means must. Lazim. Let's look at the next one. I see a fatha in here, so that's the beginning of a syllable. I see a fatha in there, that's the beginning of another syllable. Let's read the first syllable. This is the Hamza, remember? So this is a, aw, and then lad, lad. So again, remember, this is just la and alif. Lad, awlad, which means kids. Awlad. طيب. This shape is also very important. It's exactly the same. So this is a la, and then this is an alif connected to it. But this is how it looks like if it's connected to something else before it. For example, if we see this word, let me split it into two syllables. So the first syllable is ha, and then the second syllable is la. So this is basically la and alif. Hala, hala, and hala means hi. This is a more or a less formal way of saying hi compared to السلام عليكم. Hala. طيب, what about this one? Let me split it into syllables. So the first syllable is this one. It's ki because of the kasra, ki. And the second syllable is lab. Lab. Again, remember, this is just la and alif, and this is how it looks like when it's connected. Kilab, and kilab yani dogs. Kilab means dogs. Welcome to the 5th speaking lesson in this unit, and in this lesson we are going to see how to say nice to meet you and goodbye. But as always, before we get into this, let's quickly review everything we have seen so far. How do you say hi to someone? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. How do you reply? وعليكم السلام. How to say how are you? كيف حالك. How to say thank God? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. How to say good morning? صباح الخير. صباح الخير. How do you respond to that? صباح النور. صباح النور. How to say good evening? مساء الخير. And how do you respond to that? مساء النور. How do you say what's your name? وش اسمك. وش اسمك. Right? And then how do you say my name is Osamah in this case? اسمي Osamah. So وش اسمك. اسمي Osamah. And then we said whenever someone tells you about their name, their family, their hometown, to show respect you can say والنعم. والنعم, which means that's so honorable. والنعم. And then if someone says والنعم to you, you should respond with ما عليك زود. ما عليك زود. والنعم ما عليك زود. طيب, how do you say please talking to a male? لو سمحت. And by the way, لو سمحت also means excuse me, so we use it for both meanings. لو سمحت, please, excuse me. And then to a female, لو سمحتي. لو سمحتي. How do you say thanks in Arabic? شكرا. شكرا. And how do you say you're welcome? عفوا. شكرا. عفوا. Now let's look at how to say nice to meet you. If you want to tell someone nice to meet you, you should just say تشرفنا. 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 Repeat after me. تشرفنا. تشرفنا. And if someone says تشرفنا to you, you can just reply with تشرفنا. So nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. تشرفنا. تشرفنا. طيب, how do you say goodbye? مع السلامة. مع السلامة. مع السلامة. Goodbye. مع السلامة. So nice to meet you is تشرفنا. تشرفنا. And goodbye is مع السلامة. مع السلامة. مع السلامة. تشرفنا and مع السلامة. Okay, let's learn two more letters and an important concept in Arabic reading in this lesson. Let's start with the first letter. So the first letter has three heads and the tail, and this is Sa. Sa. Now Sa has a brother with three dots on top of these three heads, and this is Sha. Sha. So Sa Sha. Sa Sha. Sa and Sha. What about this one? This is Si, and this is She. Si, She. And this one? Su, Shu. Su and Shu. Now, let's see how the Sa would look like inside words. For me, I think it's like very clear and nice because we would still have like these three heads, whether it's at the beginning or at the end. The only difference would be the tail, right? And then in the middle of the word, it looks like this. Sha looks exactly the same, only with three dots on top. And now with reading, things will become much clearer as always. Let's start with this. So here we have E, so we have the Alif with a kasra, E. And then we have the Sa with no vowels, so it's just Ism. I see the magic wand also with no vowels. Ism. And Ism is a name. Remember, wish اسمك, what's your name? And اسمي, Osamah, it's coming from this word, Ism. طيب, let's look at this one. We have Sa and then Mak. Samak. And Samak means fish. Samak. Next we have, oh, I see the Sha because of the three dots. And be careful, guys. It's also very common to confuse Sha with Tha. Remember Tha? We have seen it in the very first lesson. Tha also has three dots, but it has only one head rather than three heads. So the Sha and the Tha both have three dots. One has only one head and one has three heads. So this is Sha. And then we have the Ma with no vowels, so it's Sham, Sham. And then we have the Sa with no vowels as well, so Shams, Shams. And Shams is sun, the sun. Next one, we have il in here, il, which means the, and then I see sa, and then I see the ba with no vowel, so it's sabt, sabt, il sabt, and il sabt is Saturday, il sabt. Next one, okay, this is long enough so that we need to split it into syllables. I see a dhamma here, so I start a syllable there. I see a kasra here, so I start another syllable here, and then a fatha, that will be the beginning of the third syllable. Now let's read it one syllable at a time. I see mu in here with sha and no vowels because of the circle, so this is mush, mush, and then we have ki, mush, ki, and then la, mushkila, and mushkila is a problem, mushkila. Next one, we have dars, da, and then ra with no vowels. Be careful, this is a circle, this is sukoon, this means we don't have vowels. This is not a dot, so this is ra, but with no vowels, so it's dar, dar. And then we have the sa with no vowels as well, so dars, dars, and dars is a lesson. Next one, we have wa at the beginning, and then ha, running out of breath with no vowels, so it's wah, wah, and then I see the sha with no vowels as well, so it's wahsh, wahsh, and wahsh is a beast, wahsh. Next one, let's split this into two syllables because we have two vowels. The first syllable is, we have a sha with a kasra, so it's she, shir, shir, and again this is a circle, not a dot, so this is ra with no vowels. Shirka, shirka, and shirka is a company. Now let's look at this word. We have two syllables. The first syllable is sha, sha, and the second syllable is, this is the ma, remember? Ma, mal, shamal, and shamal means north, shamal. Let's read this sentence. So the first word we have is starting with we, and then the ish, right? So wish, wish, and then we have ismek, ismek, wish, ismek, and this should sound familiar. Wish ismek means what's your name? Wish ismek. Let's look at this one. Ismi, ismi, Osamah. And this is how my name is written. Osamah. Ismi, Osamah. My name is Osamah. Ismi, Osamah. Notice how U is just a Hamza with a Dhamma. U. Let's look at this word. Or this sentence. So the first word in it is hadi. Remember, hadi means this, pointing at a female. Hadi. And then we have this word. Let's split it into syllables. Here we have a kasra. Here we have a fatha. And here we have a kasra. And we always put the vertical line before the vowel. So the first syllable would be shir, shir. The second syllable would be ka. And the third syllable is tik, tik. شركتك هذه شركتك هذه شركتك, which means is this your company? Let's look at the answer. E, notice Hamza with a kasra is just E, and then the ya makes it twice as long. E, and E means yes. E, هذه, this, and then شركتي, شركتي, my company. هذه شركتي. Yes, this is my company. And again, don't worry about the meanings, don't worry about the words, don't worry about grammar rules. The only skill that I want you to really get right in this course or in this unit is the reading skill. Everything else, like the ta marbuta, how to say my, how to say this, how to say yes, how to say no, we will see all of that in the coming units. Don't worry about it. Now, let's try to read this word, and let's start by splitting this word into syllables. So I see a kasra in here. That means I will start a syllable before this kasra. I see a fatha in here, which means I will start this word before this fatha. Now, let's read the first syllable. I see she, and I see a ba with no vowels, so this is shib, shib, and then back, back, shib, back. Now, here's something very important. Please pay attention here. Notice that we have the ba doubled, right? And that we have one ba with the first syllable and then one ba that forms the beginning of the second syllable. This is very common in Arabic. What I mean is, it's very common to have the same letter doubled where we have like this vertical line in between them, separating them into two syllables. Whenever we have that, instead of writing the letter twice, we write it once and we put this shape that looks like an omega on top of it. This shape is called shadda. Shadda. And now, how do we split words into syllables if we have the shadda? The first syllable, let's do the first syllable first. Since we have a kasra in here, the first syllable will just be there, right? But then when we see a shadda, the syllable would actually be right in the middle of the shadda. Why? Because this ba in here is actually two ba, right? Not only once, not only one. So we will need to pronounce it once with the previous syllable and once with the next syllable. And it would be shib, back. Shibbak, and shibbak, by the way, means a window. Let's look at some more examples and this will make it clearer, hopefully. Let's look at this word. So we have a syllable starting here because of this dhamma. We have a syllable starting here because of this fatha. And we have a syllable starting there because of this kasra. Now let's read them one syllable at a time. The first syllable is mu, mu. The second syllable is kay, and don't forget to pronounce the e in here, kay. And the third syllable is yif. Now, we haven't seen this letter yet, but just trust me, this is an F. So, mukayyif. Now again, notice, we have the ya here doubled, once with the second syllable and once with the third syllable. So, we will not try two ya, and instead we will just have this shadda here on top of the ya. Tamam? And then how do we split this word into syllables? The regular vowels will just be treated regularly. But then when we see a shadda, the syllable will be right in the middle of the shadda, which means I need to pronounce this letter twice. I need to pronounce it once with this syllable and once at the beginning of this syllable. And it will be mu, kay, yif, which is AC, the air conditioning. Again, if this is not making full sense yet, wait until we finish like the rest of the examples, and this should start to make more sense with time, okay? Let's look at this. Let's first start by splitting this into syllables. So the first syllable would start here before the ta, before the fatha, right? The second syllable starts there before this fatha. The third syllable starts right in the middle of the su we have in here, right? Which means I need to pronounce this S sound twice. Once with this syllable and once with that syllable. Let's try. So the first syllable will be ta. Second syllable, we have ma, but we also need to pronounce the S sound in here. So it would be mas. Ta, mas. And then the third syllable would be, starting with the S and the dhamma I see in here, it would be su, and then the k sound, right? So suk. Ta, mas, suk. Tamassuk, which means holding on to something. Let's look at other examples. So here, how would I treat this? I have a fatha in here, so I have a syllable starting before the fatha. And then I have a shadda in here, so the syllable starts right in the middle of the waw, which means I have to pronounce this waw twice. Once with this syllable and once with that syllable. Let's try to do it. So the first syllable would be ja, but I also need to pronounce the u, right? So it would be jow, jow. The second syllable would be starting with wa, wal, and the wa is twice as long because of the alif. Wal, jawwal, and jawwal is a phone. Jawwal, jawwal. Let's look at one more example. So let's split this into syllables. I have one syllable starting here before this fatha. The second syllable, where do you think it starts? Right in the middle of the ya, right? Which means I have to pronounce this ya twice, once with this syllable and once with that syllable. Now, the third syllable starts here before this fatha. Yalla, let's try. The first syllable has a sa, but I also have to pronounce the ya in here, so it will be say, say. The second syllable starts with the ya, and it has the alif, so it's ya, say, ya, and then ra. Sayyara, sayyara, which is a car. Now let's look at this word. So the first syllable would start here before this kasra. The second syllable, notice we have a shadda in here, so it starts right in the middle of the key, right? Which means I need to pronounce this key also with the first syllable. Yalla, let's start to do that. The first syllable I see a C in here, but I also need to pronounce the K, right? So it will be sick, sick, and then this syllable starts with the kasra, so it will be keen, sikkeen, and sikkeen is a knife, sikkeen. Let's look at one more example. So I have a fatha in here, which means a syllable starts there. I have a fatha in here, another syllable starts there, and then the third syllable starts where? In the middle of the mu, right? Which means I need to pronounce this M sound twice. Let's try to do that. So the first syllable is ta. The second syllable, I see the ha, but I also need to pronounce the M in here. So it will be ham, and then mul. Tahammul. Tahammul, which means endurance. Next word. I see a dhamma in here, so a syllable starts there. I see a fatha, another syllable starts here. I see a shadda, so the syllable would be right in the middle of the ma, which means I need to pronounce this M sound twice. Let's start reading the syllables one at a time. The first one is mu. The second one, I see a ha, but I also have to pronounce the M in here, right? So it would be ham, mu, ham. And the third syllable starts with the fatha on the ma, so it would be mad, mu, ham, mad. Muhammad, which is the name, Muhammad. Let's look at this example. So I have a fatha in here, that will be the beginning of a syllable. I have another fatha in here, that will be the beginning of another syllable. I have a shadda in here. So the syllable starts right in the middle of this shadda, which means I have to pronounce this L sound twice. Let's try to do that. So the first syllable is at, at. And then I see a ka, but I also have to pronounce the L, so it will be kal, kal, at, kal. And then the third syllable is lam, with a fatha. I'm starting with a fatha, so lam, at, kal, lam, atkallam, which means I speak. Let's look at this one. I have a fatha in here, so I start there. I have a shadda in here, so the syllable is in the middle of the shadda. Now let's read the first syllable. You do it first. And I hope that you were doing all of the other words first. Let's do this. Ham, don't forget to pronounce the M. Ham, and then mam, hammam, hammam. And be careful. It's really important in Arabic for the letters with the shadda to sound like actually two letters. So it's hammam. It's two M's in there. Hammam. And hammam is a bathroom. Welcome back to another speaking lesson in this unit. And in this lesson and in the coming 3 lessons, we are going to learn how to count in Arabic from 0 all the way to 20. In this lesson, we will start with 0 to 5. So let's start with 0. صفر, 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 صفر. واحد, واحد, واحد. So again, صفر, واحد, صفر, واحد. اثنين, 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 اثنين. صفر, واحد, اثنين. ثلاثة, 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 ثلاثة. صفر, واحد, اثنين, ثلاثة. Next. أربعة, 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 أربعة. And we will talk more about this sound I'm making in the next lesson. أربعة. صفر, واحد, اثنين, ثلاثة, أربعة. I hope you are repeating after me. And the last one we're going to see today is خمسة, خمسة, which is 5. خمسة. Let's start over. صفر, واحد, اثنين, ثلاثة, أربعة, خمسة. Again. صفر, واحد, اثنين, ثلاثة, أربعة, خمسة. In this lesson, we are going to see 4 more letters in Arabic, and the first 2 of these 4 are very unique sounds to Arabic. Let's start with this one. So as you see, this one looks like a small C shape on top of a bigger C shape below, and this is ah, ah. It's coming from the throat. Ah, ah. Maybe you can think of this as if you are about to vomit, but you don't. Ah, ah, ah. Now, by the way, it's very normal for you not to be able to do it now, but with time you will get there. So just stick with it, listen more, keep going with the course, do your best to pronounce the way I'm doing it, and then one day you'll get there. The other version of has 1 dot on top, and this is now gha, gha, gha. Now, you can think of gha as the sound you would make when you are gargling. So if you have some water and then you do with the water, the sound is coming from the same place, right? Gha, gha. So gha, and gha. Let's look at them with the kasra. This would be ri, ri, and this would be ri, ri. What about this one? Ru, ru, and ru, ru. Now, let's see how the would look like inside words. At the very beginning, it looks like this. So we keep this C shape that was on top, but we get rid of the tail in here or the other C shape. In the middle of the word though, or if the ayn is connected to the right side, it looks different. It would look like this. So it's like this filled in shape. Tamam? This is and When we read more words, this will become clearer, hopefully. The gha looks very similar, only with a dot on top. So this is gha, gha, and gha. Let's look at some words. Let's start with this one and split it into syllables first. So the first syllable is gha with the dot on top. This is the gargling sound. Gha, gha. And then reeb, reeb. Gharib means weird or strange. Gharib, gharib. This one, let's split it into syllables. So the first one starts here, the second one starts there, and the third one starts right in the middle of the shadda. Remember? So we need to pronounce the ma twice because of this shadda. Yalla. The first syllable is mu, and then jam. Don't forget the im. Jam, and then ma, ma. At the end, mujamma, mujamma, which is a compound. Next one, let's split this into syllables. So the first syllable we have us with a dhamma here, and then bu', bu', usbu', which is a week. Usbu'. Next one, let's split that into syllables. Now the first syllable is mesh. By the way, please try to read along. Mesh. And then, again, we have the dot on top here. So this is the gargling sound. The so this is ru. Ghul. Mashghul. And mashghul means busy. Mashghul. Next one. Let's split that into syllables. So the first syllable starts here. The second syllable right in the middle of the shadda. So we need to double the M sound. And then one here before this fatha. Let's read the first syllable. Sam, ma, samma'a, samma'a, which is headphones. Next one. Remember this shape? So we said this shape is just la and alif. So this is a long la. This is la, and then that's the first syllable. La. The second syllable we have the with a kasra, so it's ri, and this would be ib, ib, la'ib, la'ib, and la'ib is a player, la'ib. Next one, I have a kasra in there and a fatha here. Yalla. The first syllable, she. The second syllable is magh. So we have the gh at the end, the one with the gargling, right? Magh. Shimagh. And shimagh is the piece of clothing that we use in Saudi Arabia that men put on their head. It looks red. Usually red. Next one. Let's split this into syllables. So the first syllable starts here, and then before this dhamma, before that dhamma, before this kasra, and right in the middle of the ya. Yalla. The first syllable is il, su. We have the vomiting one, right? So ru, and then di. Don't forget the e part of it because we need to pronounce the ya. Di, ya. Let's do it again. السعودية السعودية and Saudiya is Saudi. It's Saudiya. Next one. Let's read the sentence now and let's start by splitting this into syllables. Again, if you forgot how we do the syllables thing, please refer back to the video where we explain the syllables in this unit. So the first syllable here is il, mu, di, ra, il-mudira. Remember, mudira is a female manager, and then il-mudira means the manager, who is a female. Mashghula. Mashghula, which means busy. Il-mudira mashghula. The manager is busy. Notice, we didn't use mashghul, but instead we added the ta marbuta because we're talking about a female manager, because of this ta marbuta as well. طيب, let's look at the next one. Let's split this into syllables. طيب, the first syllable is il, and then mu, and then jam, ma, il mujamma, which means the compound, and then ba, eid. Again, we have the vomiting one here. Ba'id, and ba'id means far away. So il mujamma ba'id means the compound is far away. Okay, let's look at the next two letters. So we have this letter in here. We have the circle and a dot on top of the circle, and this is fa. Fa, easy one compared to the a and the ra at least. And then we have another circle but with two dots on top, and it's a bit more curvier, the tail of it as well. And this is ga. So we have fa and ga. Now, one note about the ga. This letter in standard Arabic, it's pronounced as qa, which is like a heavy K sound, qa. And in English, it's usually represented with the letter Q. However, when we speak in daily life, we tend to say ga. Yet, sometimes, maybe 15% of the time, we would still say qa, but ga is the default. Let's look at these two. With the kasra, this is fi, and this is gi, this is fu, and this is gu. Now, let's see how the fa would look like inside the word. Basically, we would still see the circle with a dot on top, but then the tail itself changes. But the circle with the dot on top is always fa. What about the ga? It's again a circle, but with two dots on top instead of one dot. Let's look at some words. So the first word has two syllables. The first syllable here is gah. This is the ha, remember? Gah. And then wa. Gahwa. And gahwa is coffee. Gahwa. Next one. We have two syllables again. The first syllable is fin. We have the fa with the kasra. And then jan. Finjan. Finjan is the small coffee cup we use in Saudi. Finjan. Next one. We have two syllables again. Let's read the first syllable. Maw. Ma, and then oo with no vowels. Maw. Gif, right? We have the ga and then the fa with no vowels. Gif. So mawgif, and mawgif is a parking. Next one, we have two syllables. The first one starts here, and the second one right in the middle of the shadda. So we need to pronounce the ra twice. Let's read the first syllable. Har, and then rag. Harrag, which means spicy. Harrag. Next one, I see three vowels, so we have three syllables. Let's split the word. The first syllable is now ha, and then di ga. Hadiga. Hadiga, which is a park. Next one, I see two syllables. So the first syllable is ga, and then reeb. Reeb. Garib. And garib means close. Let's look at this one. Again, I see two vowels, so I also see two syllables. The first syllable is maf. Remember, the circle with one dot on top is f. So maf, and then roosh. Mafroosh. The ru is twice as long. Mafroosh means furnished. Mafroosh. Next one, we have one syllable, and it's galb. Galb. And galb means heart. Galb. Next one, I see two syllables. So here's one and here's two. The first syllable is mag, and then lab. Mag, lab. And maglab is a prank. Next one, I see two syllables again. The first syllable is mug, and we tend to pronounce this word actually with the other pronunciation, which is muq, and then rif. Rif. Muqrif or mugrif, both would work. Mugrif, which means disgusting. Let's look at some sentences. So let's read the first word here, splitting it into syllables first. Yalla. Il hadiga. Il hadiga, which means the park. And then let's split the other word into syllables. Yalla, the first syllable ga. Riba. Gariba, which means close or nearby. So il hadiga gariba, the park is close. Again, I hope that you pause the video, that you are already pausing the video, trying to read the words or the sentences first, and then seeing what I'm doing. Next one, let's split this into syllables again. Yalla, we have il, which means the, remember, il, da, jaj, il dajaj, which means the chicken. And then the second word has two syllables. Notice we have a shadda, so the ra is doubled. Harrag, harrag, which means spicy. So il dajaj harrag, the chicken is spicy. In this speaking lesson, we are going to continue with the numbers, and we are going to see numbers from 6 to 10. But first, let's review what we have already seen. صفر, واحد, اثنين, ثلاثة, أربعة, and notice that أربعة has this sound, the vomiting sound. أربعة and خمسة, خمسة. Next we have ستة, 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 ستة. And then سبعة, سبعة. Again we have this vomiting sound. سبعة, سبعة. ستة, سبعة. Again, ستة, سبعة. Next we have ثمانية, ثمانية. And ثمانية is 8. ثمانية. Again, ستة, سبعة, ثمانية, ثمانية. And next we have تسعة, تسعة. Again we have the vomiting sound. تسعة, تسعة. Again, starting from 6. ستة, سبعة, ثمانية, تسعة. And the last one we have is عشرة. Again, عشرة, the at the beginning. عشرة, عشرة, which is 10. Okay, let's start over from 6. ستة, سبعة, ثمانية, تسعة, and عشرة. Okay, let's try to do it together starting from 0. صفر, واحد, اثنين, ثلاثة, أربعة, خمسة, ستة, سبعة, ثمانية, تسعة, and عشرة. This is a very exciting lesson because in this lesson, we are going to see the last 4 letters we have in Arabic, and all of these 4 are actually going to be somewhat unique sounds to Arabic. Let's start with the first one. So here we have this weird loop, and it looks like a whale to me, and this long stick. This is ta. Ta. Now, ta is a heavier version of this letter. Remember what that letter was? That was ta. Ta. That is a soft. That's the regular ta we all use in English, for example. Ta. Whereas this one is heavier. This is ta. 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 Now, let me just, to illustrate this, try to pronounce some English words that start with T and use the ta sound instead. For instance, the word table, table. If I want to pronounce it with this letter instead, I would say table, table, instead of table, right? So this is ta, a heavier version of ta. The next one, we have the same whale with the long stick, but this time with a dot. This is, again, a heavier version of another sound we have in Arabic, which is this one. Remember what that one was? The one that looks like da but with a dot. This is the. The. Now, the heavier version of the, which is what we're looking at today, is the. 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 Again, to illustrate this, let's think of a word in English that starts with the. For example, that, pointing at something, that. If I want to pronounce that with this sound, I would say that, that, and see how it's different. You can hear the difference, but again, it takes time until you really get used to it. So we have ta and va. Let's look at them with the kasra. This is ti, and this is zi. Ti, zi. Let's look at them with dhammas. This is tu, tu, and this is dhu, dhu. Now, what I love the most about the ta and the dha is that they don't change shape inside the word. They always look exactly the same, only with extending arms. Dha, again, the same, only with a dot. Let's look at some words now. So, I see 3 vowels here, so I have 3 syllables. The first one starts here. The second one, remember, right in the middle of the ya because of the shadda. So, I need to pronounce the ya twice. And then I have the ra in here. Yalla. The first syllable is tayi. So, ta, the heavier version of ta. Tayi, don't forget to pronounce the ya. And then ya, ra. Tayyara, tayyara, which is an airplane. Tayyara. Next one. Again, I see 3 vowels, so 3 syllables. The first one starts here. The second one, right in the middle of the shadda, which means I need to pronounce the dha twice. And then I have one here before the ra. Yalla. The first syllable is, be careful, nav, nav. So I start with na and then also pronounce the dha with no vowels. Nav. And then dha, ra. Nadhara, nadhara. And nadhara is eyeglasses. Nadhara. Next one, I see 2 vowels, so 2 syllables. Let's read the first syllable, fu, fu. And then we have the ta with the dhamma, so tu, tur, futur, and futur is breakfast, futur. Next one, let's look at this. So I see a kasra in here, that's the beginning of a syllable, and I see a fatha here, that's the beginning of another syllable. Let's read the first one. Remember, Hamza with the kasra is e, right? So this is if, and then tar, iftar, and iftar is the Ramadan breakfast. Iftar, right? Next one. I see 2 vowels, which means I have 2 syllables. The first one starts here, the second one starts there. Let's read the first one. This is the, right? The heavier version of the, and then reef, dharif, which means funny, dharif. Next one, I see 2 vowels, so I have 2 syllables. The first one starts here, the second one starts there. Let's read the first one. Matto, I have the ta, but with no vowels. Matto, bakh, matbakh, matbakh, and matbakh is a kitchen. Let's look at the next one. We have 2 syllables again. The first syllable is na, the second syllable is zeef, nadif. نظيف. And nadif means clean. Next one, I see two vowels, so we have two syllables again. The first syllable is mah. We have the wave with no dots. Mah, and then ظوظ. ظوظ. محظوظ. And محظوظ means lucky. محظوظ. Next one, I see two syllables. So the first syllable, remember this letter, the gargling sound, غ, غ. So this is غ, and then لط, غلط, غلط. And غلط means wrong, غلط. And now with the last two letters in Arabic, let's look at them. So here we still have this shape that looks like a whale to me, but this time with a much shorter stick and a tail. This is again a heavier version of another sound we have in Arabic, which is this one. What was that? This is sa, sa, right? This is saw, saw. So we have sa and we have saw, saw. A heavier version of it, saw, right? Let's look at this one. This is, what I'm going to say is not like very accurate linguistically, but this would help you at least at the beginning. But if you're trying to read, for example, the Quran or like some classical text, don't take this, or at least take this with a grain of salt. So this is, we can think of as a heavier version of da. Again, this is not very accurate, but this could help you at the beginning. This is law, law, law. So we have saw and law, saw and law. Let's look at them with the kasra. This is si, si. And this is li, li, si and li. Next we have with a dhamma, su, su and lu, su and lu, su, lu. The good thing about sa and la is that, again, like the ta and dha we have seen, they don't really change much. We would still have the whale, but this time the whale has a much shorter stick in here. Da looks exactly the same, only with one dot on top. Now let's look at some words. Starting with this one, I see the whale in here, and I see two syllables. The first syllable is sa, sa. The second syllable is bah, sabah, sabah, which means morning. Remember, sabah الخير, which means good morning. Sabah الخير, good morning. Next one, we have only one syllable. It starts with la, the heavier version of da. ضيف, ضيف, and ضيف is a guest. ضيف. Next one, I see three vowels, which means I have three syllables. This is the first one, the second one, and the third one starts right in the middle of the shadda. Alright, so we have to pronounce the wa twice. The first syllable is mu, and then saw. Saw, don't forget to pronounce the wa, saw, and then wir, wir, musawwir, musawwir, which is a photographer, musawwir. Next one, we have two syllables. The first one is wa, and then ضح, ضح. Again, this letter is the heavier version of da. So واضح, and واضح means clear, واضح. Next one, I see two syllables. The first syllable is sa, sa, the heavier version of sa, sa. And then the second syllable is غير, غير. This is sometimes confusing. So the gha is the gargling sound, ghi, and then rrr with the tongue rolling, right? So صغير, صغير means small, صغير. Next one. Well, I see the il in here, and then I see a fatha, and I see a dhamma. So we have three syllables. Let's read them. The first syllable is il, and then maf, and then rood. Il mafrood. Il mafrood, which means supposed to be. What's supposed to be? Il mafrood. Next one. So the word is only one syllable, and it's sah. Sah. Sah means correct or right. Sah. Next one. Again, the whole word is only one syllable, and it's saif. Saif. We need to pronounce the ya, guys, don't forget, with no vowels. Say. Saif. and صيف is summer. Now, what happens if I change the first letter only? What happens if I make the first letter the other version of the Sa we have in Arabic, the softer one? Now this becomes safe, safe, and safe is a sword. So be careful. The meaning of the word would change if you pronounce it with a sa or a sa. So safe, safe. Let's look at another example. Here we have two syllables. First we have a, and then we have seal. And notice that we're using the regular soft S, right? So a seal is a name of a female. A seal, a seal. However, if I change the seal part and use this heavier version, it becomes a seal, and this is now a name of a male in Saudi. So a seal is the name of a female, a seal is the name of a male. So again, be careful. These are actually different letters. Next one, we see darb, darb, and darb means way or pathway. Now, what happens if I change the first letter and instead of da, I use the heavier version, which is darb, darb. Again, notice the previous one was darb. Now this is darb, darb, darb. And darb means hitting someone. Again, very different. So darb is a pathway, darb is hitting someone. Another speaking lesson, and in this lesson we are going to continue with numbers from 11 to 15. Let's first review what we have seen so far, starting from 0 to 10. صفر, واحد, اثنين, ثلاثة, أربعة, خمسة, ستة, سبعة, ثمانية, تسعة, عشرة. Now, what we have next is 11, and 11 is إحداش, 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 إحداش. And then we have 12, which is إثناش, إثناش, إثناش. Again, 11 is إحداش, إحداش. 12 is إثناش, إحداش, إثناش, إحداش, إثناش. Next one we have 13. It would be ثلاث طعش, ثلاث طعش, ثلاث طعش, ثلاث طعش. Again, let's start from 11. إحداش, إحداش, then إثناش, إثناش, and then ثلاث طعش, ثلاث طعش. 14 is أربع طعش, أربع طعش, أربع طعش. Again, 13 was ثلاث طعش, 14 is أربع طعش. Let's start from 11 again. We have إحداش, and then إثناش, ثلاث طعش, أربع طعش, and finally خمس طعش, خمس طعش, خمس طعش. إحداش, إثناش, ثلاث طعش, أربع طعش, and خمس طعش. In the last lesson, we have finished all the Arabic letters. However, we still have some final notes and some like additional symbols that you need to know of. And the first one of these is this. Notice that we have an Alif here with two fathas on top of it. We call this shape a Tanween, and this could only appear at the end of words, and I will show you how to read it in a second. But first, let me tell you how we split words into syllables when they have that. Always, 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 when you see this shape at the end of any word, you take this Alif with the Tanween on top of it and the previous letter, and this becomes one syllable, right? And how do you read it? We just basically add the N sound to this letter. So here we have Ra, so this becomes run, run, okay? Let me show you. Let's try to read this word. The first syllable would be shuk, and then run, shukran, shukran, which means thanks. This is how shukran is actually written. Shukran. Let's look at another example. Again, see we have that shape at the end. So we immediately take it with the previous letter or like with the last letter in the word. And we consider this to be one block. Now, how do we read this? Again, we add n to the wow in this case. So it becomes one, one. Let's read the entire word. What do we have here at the beginning? Remember the one that sounds like vomiting. Afwan, afwan. And afwan means you're welcome. This is how we respond to shukran, afwan. Next one, again, I see these two fathas in here on top of an alif, so I take them and I take the previous letter, and this becomes one syllable. How do I read it? It's ban in this case because I have the ba. Ban. Okay, let's try to split the rest of the word into syllables. There's a fatha here, there's a kasra here, so these would be just as usual. Let's read the first syllable. Tag or taq, both would work. Taq or tag, and then ri. So this is a long vowel. I just forgot to make it in orange. Ri ban. Taqriban. Taqriban or taqriban, which means approximately. Taqriban. One more example. Again, notice I have this shape at the end. So I take it immediately with the previous letter and this becomes one syllable. How do I read it now? Well, I have na and I need to add n to it, so it becomes nan. Nan. Yalla, let's read the rest of the word. Here we have ya. Again, this alif is a long vowel. I just forgot to make it in orange again. Ya nan. Ahyanan. Ahyanan, which means sometimes. Ahyanan. Next one. Again, I see this shape, these two fatha on top of each other here again. So I take it with the previous letter. Now this is one syllable and this becomes dan. Dan, right? Because I have the dan, I add n to it. Dan. Let's read the rest of the word. The first syllable is just because of the Hamza. And then ba, dan. Abadan. Abadan means never. Abadan. Let's look at this one. So again, I see it here at the end, so I immediately take it with the previous letter. Now, how do I read this block? Ton. Ton, right? I have the ta here, the heavier version of ta, with the n sound becomes ton. Ton. Let's read the rest of the word. Now, the first syllable would be so I have the alif with the kasra. And then ti, ya, tan, ihtiyatan. Ihtiyatan means just in case. Ihtiyatan. Let's look at this one. Again, I see the tanween here at the end. So I take it with the previous letter. And now how do I read this block? Run. I have the ra, so this becomes run. Now let's read the rest of the word. The first syllable would be na, di, run. Nadiran. And nadiran means rarely. Nadiran. Let's look at this one. So again, I see it here. Now, where's the alif? This is the alif. Remember this shape? We have seen it before. And we said this shape is basically la and alif. So this is the alif and this is the la. And I would read this as lan. Lan. Okay? And the first syllable would be as. This is the sa, the heavier version of sa. Aslan. Aslan. So originally, aslan. Let's look at this one. Again, I see it here at the end. How do I read this block? Sun. Sun. Now, let's read the entire word. Khu, su, sun. Khususan. Khususan. And khususan means especially. Khususan. Okay, now let's talk about the shapes of Hamza in Arabic. First, let me remind you what the Hamza was. This was the Hamza, right? And we said we will mostly see it on top of an alif, as in this case. And we said this would be a, right? And we said the Hamza would be either a or e or u, depending on the haraka it has, depending on the vowel it has. However, now I want you to know that we can have this Hamza on top of other letters other than the alif. Right? So in this case, we can have it on top of this thing that looks like a ya. How do you pronounce this? Again, just a or e or u. It's the exact same pronunciation, just a different look, I would say. Depending on the vowel, of course, the pronunciation would be. We can also have the Hamza on top of a wow, as in this case. How do you pronounce it? Again, exactly the same. A or E or U. And now we will see some examples. What I just want you to keep in mind is that whenever you see this shape, this Hamza, right, this 2 that is looking to the other side, number 2, just pronounce it as either A or E or U, depending on the haraka. You can also see the Hamza on something like this, if it's like in the middle of the word. Again, we don't really care. As long as we see the Hamza, we will just pronounce it as A, E, or U. Okay? Let's look at some words. Let's spread this into syllables. So I have a syllable starting here because of the fatha. I have a kasra in here, so that's the beginning of another syllable. I have a tanween in here, so don't forget I take this as one block. And how do I read just the last block? Man, because of the tanween, right? Now let's read the rest of the word. This is da, and then what do we have here? We have the Hamza. I don't care on what shape it comes. It's just a Hamza with a kasra, so this is E. So this is basically da, I, man, da'iman, which is always, da'iman. What about this one? Let's split it into syllables. So I see a dhamma in here and I see a fatha in there. So this is one syllable, this is another syllable. The first syllable is su. The second syllable, well, I see a waw in here, but on top of the waw there is a Hamza. I don't care what the Hamza comes on top of. If there's a Hamza, it's either A or E or U. In this case, we have a fatha, so it's A. And this syllable would be al, but I make the A twice as long because of the alif. Al. So this is su'al, and su'al means a question. Let's look at this one. I have a syllable starting here and another one starting there. This would be ma, and this would be sa. Now notice that we have the Hamza here with nothing. So it's not on top of an alif or a ya or a waw or anything. It's just there on its own. And since it doesn't have any vowels, it's not really a, I, u. It's just So sa, masa. And masa means evening. Masa as in مساء الخير, right? Okay, another speaking lesson, and in this lesson we are going to continue with numbers from 16 to 20 this time. Before we get into it, as always, let's review all the numbers we have seen so far from 0 to 15. 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 and 15. Next, we will continue with the same pattern we have seen with like 13, which is saying the number and then adding tash to it. 13 14 15 16 would be 16 and then 17 is 17 so 16 17 18 would be 18 18. So again, starting from 16, 16 17 18. 19 is 19. So starting from 16 again, 16 17 18 19. The last number we have is 20, and this would be 20. Let's do all the numbers now together, starting from 0. 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 and 20. Repeat these over and over again until they become a second nature to you, because numbers are very important in any language. Okay, in this lesson we are going to talk about something really important, and it is about how to pronounce this. What was that? Remember, this was the il, and we said il means the, and we add it at the beginning of words. For example, here we see il bait, and it always comes connected, right? Il bait. However, today we are going to focus on the first letter that comes after il, because this letter will change the way that we should pronounce il. And let me show you how. We can divide Arabic letters into two groups: moon letters and sun letters. The moon letters are basically letters that don't require any involvement of the tip of the tongue to pronounce them. So for example, a, I can glue the tip of my tongue and still do a, or ba, ja, ha, kha, a, gha, etc. I'm not using the tip of my tongue. The sun letters on the other side require the usage of the tip of the tongue. So try to pronounce ta, and notice where the tip of your tongue is going. Ta, it's going up, right? Tha, the tip of the tongue is going between your teeth. Da, again, it's going up. So the sun letters require usement of the tip of the tongue. Moon letters don't. So do we have to memorize which letters are moon letters and which letters are sun letters? Absolutely not. I will show you how we can differentiate between these two letters inside the word and why it matters in the first place. Let's look at some words. Starting with this one, let's split this into syllables. The first syllable would start here, and then there, and then here. Yalla, the first syllable would be il, and then ga, and then mar. So nothing new so far. Notice that I have a circle on top of the lam in il, and whenever I have that circle, it means the next letter, which is ga in this case, is one of the moon letters. And if it's a moon letter, it means just pronounce everything as we have used to do. So il-gamar, which means the moon, by the way, il-gamar. Now, if we have a sun letter, like in here, notice that we would have a shadda. Let's try to split this word into syllables. So the first syllable starts here as always. The second syllable starts right in the middle of the shadda, which means I have to pronounce this sha twice. And now what I do is, instead of saying il, I skip the il and I say ish. Again, instead of pronouncing il, I would pronounce ish, and then I would say shams. Ish shams. Why? Because sha is one of the sun letters. So when we have a sun letter, we double the letter itself and we skip the il, or you can think of it as replacing the il with the letter itself. So say ish shams, ish shams, which means the sun. With more examples, this will become clearer. Let's look at the next one. Again, let's split this into syllables. So I have these syllables, and notice I have the circle in here, which means this is just a moon letter. Read it regularly, so it would be il walad, il walad, which means the boy, il walad. Now let's look at this one. Notice we have a shadda on the first letter coming after the la, which means this is a sun letter. So the first syllable starts here, the second syllable starts right in the middle of the shadda, and then here. And again, how do I read the first syllable? I don't pronounce the il, right? I replace the il sound with in. So this would be in, and then nadi, innadi, which means the gem, innadi. Why am I skipping the il? Because I have a sun letter, which is the na. And try to say na, by the way. Notice how the tip of your tongue is going up. So you don't have to memorize which letter is in which group. Just look for the shadda. If you see the shadda, it's a sun letter. If you don't see it, it's just a regular moon letter. Let's look at the next one. We don't have the shadda in here, so this would be just a regular moon letter. Let's try to read it. It would be il mudir, il mudir, which means the manager, il mudir. This one, notice that we have a shadda on the first letter coming after il, which means it's a sun letter, and we need to replace il with this letter. So the first syllable would be is, and then sayf, sayf, which means the summer, sayf. And I would not say il sayf. We never say that. If you say it, people would still understand you though, but it sounds different. Okay, this one. Notice we don't have a shadda here on the first letter coming after il, so it's just a regular moon letter. So it would be il bait, البيت, which means the house, البيت. Let's look at this one. The first syllable starts here. The second syllable, we have a shadda. So this is a sun letter. The second syllable starts right in the middle of this. And then here, yalla, let's read the first syllable. Since this is a sun letter, I replace il with ir. And then ri, ri. Remember, the ri is doubled. So ri, yad, riyad, which is Riyadh. So Riyadh is how we say it. Riyadh. Let's look at this one. I don't have a shadda here, so it's just a regular letter, and it will be il-jaw, which means the weather. Il-jaw. Let's look at this one. Notice that I have a shadda in here, which means this is a sun letter, so the second syllable starts right in the middle. And then I have a syllable starting here and there, and again right in the middle of the shadda here. Yalla. Since this is a sun letter, instead of saying il, what should I say? Is. So I go immediately to the is, and then su. Why su? Because I have this sa doubled with the dhamma, so su, is, su, and then ru, and then di, ya. Is Saudiya, and Saudiya is Saudi. Is Saudiya. Okay, now let's talk about this shape. So this looks like a ya, but it doesn't have dots. And this is actually a long alif that appears at the end of words. This might be confusing, but we need to get used to it. Let's look at some examples. Here, this word would be la. So again, I would treat this just as a long vowel, just like a regular alif that looks different. Ala, which means on, ala. And this one, let me split it into two syllables. So the first syllable would be mab. The second syllable is na. So this letter that looks like a ya with no dots, we just treat it as a regular long vowel alif. Mabna. And it only appears at the end of words. Mabna is a building. Next one, let's look at this one and split it into syllables. So the first syllable is T, and then mash, and then sha. Tamasha. And tamasha means to take a walk. And again, notice this is just treated as a regular long vowel. طيب, now let's look at this shape. This is looking like an alif with this wiggly line on top. And this is basically, so it's a long Hamza, sort of. Let me show you some examples so that it becomes clearer. I would read this as as. So this wiggly line just makes this longer. As, ya. Asya, and Asya means Asia. Asya. Let's look at another example. That would be a syllable because of the kasra, and that would be a syllable here. So the first syllable here is and then khidh, akhidh, which means I take. Akhidh. Another example, again, I have a syllable starting here and another one here because of the kasra. So the first syllable is again and then kill, akil, which means I eat. Akil. Let's look at this example. So I have a syllable starting here, and again, this is always the beginning of a syllable, by the way. So I have a syllable starting here. So the first syllable is qur. Remember, this letter is either ga or qa. In this case, we read it as qa with a dhamma. It's qu. So qur, and then Quran, which is the name of the holy book, Quran. In the previous speaking lessons, we have seen how to greet others. We have seen some like basic expressions like thank you, please, etc. We have seen how to count from 0 to 20. And now in this lesson, we are going to look at the pronouns in Arabic. How to say I, how to say you, how to say he, and how to say she. And this will be important. Now, since we are done with the reading course, we will also see how to read these, right? Because we can do it. So let's start with the pronoun I. Na, ana. Easy. Ana, I, ana. Right? طيب, let's look at the second pronoun. Ant. And notice, this person is looking at that person and pointing at him, saying, ant, you. However, we only use ant if we are talking to a male. If we're talking to a female, as we see in this sketch, by the way, Tell me what you think about these sketches. But if we talk to a female, if we're saying you, but to a female, it would be anti, anti, anti. Okay, so again, I, ana, you is either ant if I'm talking to a male, or anti if I'm talking to a female. Two more pronouns. He. Now, this dude is looking at us and talking about that third person. So he's pointing at him, saying he. And in Arabic, that would be who, he, who. And now, again, that person is looking at us, talking to us, and pointing at that person who's a female, pointing at her. So this would be she. And she in Arabic is he. I know, that might be confusing. So she in English is he in Arabic. He. Okay? So again, I is ana. You is ant if I'm talking to a male. And anti if I'm talking to a female. He is who. And she is he. I hope that's not so confusing. Now we are officially done with the reading course. However, there are some words that we have seen, but in our daily life we pronounce them slightly differently compared to the standard way that we have learned in this course. And in this lesson, we are just going to look at these words and see how we actually pronounce them. So let's start with this one. We have bait, and bait means a house, right? However, in our daily life, we say bait, and we're going to see a pattern now in a second. Let's look at the second one. Here we have bain. However, in daily life, we say bain, and bain means between. Bain. Let's look at another one. This one is layl. Can you guess how we pronounce it in our daily lives compared to, or based on what we have seen in bait and bain? This would be layl. So we kind of don't like to make the I sound like layl, and we always make it layl, which is night, layl. Let's look at another example. This is zain. How do you think we pronounce it? Zain. And by the way, if you still say zain or bait or bain, people would understand you. However, everyone would be saying zain and bain and bait. Let's look at this one. Dain, which means debt. And how do you think we pronounce it? Dain. Let's look at another one. Here we have a, and then lake. Again, notice we have the lay thing here again. So instead of عليك, we say عليك, which means on you. طيب, here's another pattern we have. Let's read these. ثوب, right? And instead of saying ثوب, we actually say ثوب, and that's why it's ثوب in English as well. Let's look at another example. This is لون. And again, instead of saying لون, we say لون, which means color, لون. Another example would be this one. كون, which means a universe. How do you think we pronounce it? Again, think of لون and think of the other word we have seen, which was ثوب. So ثوب and لون, and كون, which is a universe, كون. Another one, زود. However, we don't say زود. What do you think we say? زود, which means extra. And now with the last lesson in this unit. In this lesson, we're going to read all the expressions that we have learned how to speak before, like السلام عليكم, صباح الخير, كيف حالك, etc. Let's look at them. Starting with this one, let's split it into syllables. So the first syllable would start here. The second syllable right in the middle of the shadda, guys, right? And since we have a shadda in the first letter immediately after il, it means this is a sun letter, right? And then we have a fatha here, so that would be the beginning of another syllable. I see a dhamma here, that's the beginning of another syllable. I see a fatha, and another one here, and finally another syllable here. Yalla. How do we read the first syllable? Be careful, don't pronounce il, because you have a sun letter here. We say is. So we replace il with is. And then what do we have? The sa is doubled, so we need to pronounce it again. We say sa. So is sa, and then what do we have in here? Remember, this shape is la and alif. So this is la, long, sa, la, mu, a, lay, kum. Assalamu alaikum. And this is how it looks like. So we have il actually at the beginning, but we don't pronounce it because the sa is one of the sun letters. Assalamu alaikum. And this literally means peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. Let's look at this one. Again, let's split that in two syllables. The first syllable would be wa, and then a, and then lay, kum. And I guess you see where this is going. Now the second word is the exact word we have seen in the previous slide, right? Which is salam. Again, notice we have il at the beginning. We skip the il because the sa is one of the sun letters. How do we know it's a sun letter? We have the shadda. Salam. So وعليكم السلام, which means and upon you be peace. Let's look at this one. So the first word is like one syllable, and then the second word is only two syllables. Let's read the first word. كيف. كيف. However, remember what we said in the previous lesson? Whenever we have like this pattern, instead of saying كيف, we tend to say كيف in our daily life. كيف. And then حالك. كيف حالك. كيف حالك. How are you? كيف حالك. Next one. We have one syllable here and one syllable there. Now, this second word, let's just keep it as is, and I will tell you how to read it. What do we have in here? We have il, and then hamd, الحمد. Now the second word is lillah, lillah, which means to God, and it's always written this way. Slightly different compared to what we have seen before because it's the name of God. But this is basically la, and then another la, and then a ha, lillah. So this is Alhamdulillah. This is how we read it in our daily life. Alhamdulillah, which means thank God. Alhamdulillah. Next one. So we have two syllables for the first word and two syllables for the second word. The first word would be Sabah, Sabah, which means morning. And then we have Khayr, Khayr. Again, see the same pattern. Instead of saying Khayr, we say Khair, Khair, Sabah, Khair. Good morning. This one. Again, we have two syllables for the first word. And then for the second word, the first syllable starts here. The second one, right in the middle of the shadda, right? Which means we need to pronounce the na twice. Let's read the first word. Sabah, again, sabah, which means morning. And then how do you read this syllable? Notice I have il, but I have a shadda immediately after the il, which means this is a sun letter. So I skip the il and I replace il with in. So this is in, and then Noor, in Noor, Sabah, in Noor. Sabah in Noor is the reply to Sabah al-Khair, good morning. طيب, next one. Let's look at this. We have Sa. This is the Hamza with no vowels, so it's Masa'A, which means evening. And then the same word we have just seen, الخير, مساء الخير, good evening. How do you reply to it? مساء النور, which is good evening again. Notice that we have il with النور. However, we don't pronounce it as il, we pronounce it as النور because na is one of the sun letters. Let's look at this one. So we have the first word being one syllable, which is wish, wish meaning what, and then اسمك, اسمك, your name. Wish, اسمك, what's your name? This one, we have two syllables for the first word. Ismi, ismi, my name is. And then let's look at the second word. We have three syllables here. The first syllable is u, so Hamza with dhamma, u, and then sa, and then ma, which is my name. Osamah, so ismi, Osamah, my name is Osamah. Okay, now let's look at this word. Let's ignore the first letter for a second because it's not part of the original word. Here we have il, notice. So I would have a syllable starting here, and then I see a shadda, so the second syllable starts right in the middle of the shadda. The shadda is coming immediately after il, which means this is a sun letter. And then I have another vowel here. So how do I read this? The first syllable, instead of il, I would say in, right? In. The second syllable is just ni, because the na is doubled and we have a kasra. So inni, and then النعم. And now I just add the we to it, so it becomes والنعم, which means that's so honorable. And this is the phrase we use whenever someone tells us about their name, صح? والنعم. طيب, let's look at this one. The first word is just one syllable, the second word is two syllables, and the third word is also one syllable. So let's read the first one. Ma, and then عليك. And again, instead of عليك, we tend to say عليك. So ما عليك, and then زود. And instead of زود, we tend to say زود. So ما عليك زود, which is the reply to والنعم. ما عليك زود. Let's look at this one. We have a syllable here, and we have two syllables for the second word. So the first syllable is just لو, and then we have سمحت. لو سمحت, which means please or excuse me. لو سمحت. What about this one? Again, the first word is the same. Second word this time has three syllables. So the first word is لو سمحتي. لو سمحتي, which again means please or excuse me, but this time if we're talking to a female. Let's look at this one. We have a syllable starting here, and then we see the Tanween at the end, which means we take it with the previous letter as one block. And how do you read this? Run, remember? So we have shukran, which means thanks, shukran. Next one, we have a syllable starting here, and then again we see the Tanween, these two fatha on top of each other here. So we take it with the previous letter as one block. How do we read this block? One. So this would be afwan, which is you're welcome. So this is how you reply to someone saying shukran. Next one, we have a syllable starting here, a one starting here. The next one will be right in the middle of the shadda, and then one here before this fatha, and then one here before that fatha. Yalla. The first syllable would be ma, and then here, how do we read this? Notice we have il, but also we have a shadda afterwards, so we replace il with is, because sa is one of the sun letters. Is, and then we read the sa again. Sa, is sa, and then la. Remember, this is just la and alif, so a long la. Is sa la ma is salama salama, which means goodbye. Salama. Next one, we have a kasra here, and then we have a fatha here. Where does the next syllable start? Right in the middle of the shadda, yeah. And then we have a syllable starting here. So the first syllable is ti, and then shar, and then I read the ra again because it has a shadda. Raf, ti shar raf, and then na, tisharrafna, which means nice to meet you.